Welcome everybody. Welcome to Solo ReacTalk. This morning I'm going to be reacting to Lucius, the Eternal Champion of Slaanesh. Entire character history, voice acted, 40k lore, made on the Amber King YouTube channel and voice acted by Chris Glass. And yeah, I am entering into the Chaos Marines this time. I'm starting with Lucius. Lucius the Eternal, and Soul Tarvitz. Soul Tarvitz, I remember there was a discussion about Soul Tarvitz in, what was that video called again? Cry Havoc from Evox in the Void. Yes, I remember, the loyalist forces were talking about Soul Tarvitz. So I think he comes from this legion, the Emperor's Children, the Third Legion. So yes, it's also going to be very interesting to hear about him. But yes, Lucius the Eternal, I don't know a lot about him. I know him primarily from if the Emperor had a text-to-speech device. There were some episodes where Lucius was in those episodes, and he was a menace to society. Whether they were Eldar, there were humans, there were Psychers, he was just a simple menace to society. And yeah, the last time I actually reacted to a Chaos Marine from the Amber King was, I think it was Khan. Khan of the World Eaters, the 12th Legion. So yes, it's good to have another Chaos Marine. Well, I'm not being a heretic, okay? It's just good to learn about the history of the Chaos Marines that contributed to the Horus Heresy. Yeah, I'm not supporting Chaos, okay? I don't like the Emperor, but I'm with the Emperor. But yeah, so it's good to be back, watching another Chaos Marine here, Lucius. And yeah, he looks nasty. From this image here, he really looks nasty. Really. All the scars on his face, and I don't know what's going on with his armor. And that tongue. Oh, it can take you places. Let's just say it can do things. That tongue can do things. But yeah, let us start. Remember, if you want to check out my previous reactions to other of the Amber King's Warhammer 40k content, the playlist card is going to be at the top right here for the Warhammer 40k content created by YouTubers reaction playlist. If you want to check out the original video as well as the Amber King's YouTube channel, the links are going to be in the description below. And let us start. Oh yes, before we begin, this was a request from where is the YouTube channel name? Riza 5379. Yes, this is the request from Rises 5379. Hopefully I'm pronouncing your YouTube name correctly. I'm sorry. Okay, let's start. 3, 2, 1, go.
None will stand before my perfection. My superiority is eternal. Agony, ecstasy, more. Sensation will be mine.
What have we learned from people who always aspire for perfection? Who always yearn for perfection, who always aim for perfection? They never attain it. They become lost in their desire for it and are willing to do whatever means necessary to obtain it. And that's one of the easiest paths to chaos. The pursuit for perfection. It doesn't exist, it's an illusion. But here's Lucius now talking about it, saying that he's attained perfection. This is perfection. This creature is perfection, right? Chemos. Chemos is the homeworld of Fulgrim. Okay.
Perfection is a process. It is the fruit of the highest branch. That is why we are here, my sons. This world is the beginning of our climb. The fruit sits above us, just out of reach. We will climb until we have it in our grasp. But climb we must, lest our imperfections damn us to mere adequacy.
A scarred, haunted visage reflects the twisted, sadistic heart within Lucius, the soul thief, Fulgrim's champion, the scion of Chemos and champion of Slaanesh. A name spoken with equal parts dread and pleasure. A monster who even death cannot hold over. A man who embodied the darkness that lay in the heart of the Third Legion. A darkness countered by the other side of that coin. Saul Tarvitz, a tragic legend whose legacy is the last vestiges of nobility his legion gave to the galaxy. But who are Lucius and Saul? How did men who are as close as brothers embody the sensations of betrayal and tragedy the Horus Heresy unleashed?
Yeah, well, it seems that Saul Tarvitz is the light, while Lucius is the darkness. And, you know, in terms of the Imperium of Man and the Primarchs and the Astartes, you know, brotherly love can only take you so far. If your ambitions are strong enough, if your desires are far more powerful than your code of ethics, your duty, your honor, your loyalty to the Imperium of Man, then it doesn't matter how close you are as brothers, even as blood-related family members, you are still going to kill each other in this universe of Warhammer 40k. Nothing is sacred. Nothing.
A story that leaves one heinous, disgusting monster in its wake, an eternal nightmare for mankind. Their story begins at the end of the 30th millennium. Deep in the Aquitine sector of the galaxy, two children were born to a world dominated by near-perpetual twilight. Chemos. The world that Lucius and Saul were born to was almost unrecognizable to eyes that had seen it decades before. It was a story told to these young boys, and to almost every child born on this grey world. Decades ago, like an angel descending from the very heavens, a mysterious child crashed into the surface of Chemos. Beautiful, purple eyes looked around, only to find a picture of misery. Chemos, for millennia, had been a mining colony, populated during humanity's golden era over 5,000 years ago. But with utopia in humanity's grasp, it was ripped away. Old night. The age of strife had arrived, and with the collapse of the spanning federation of mankind, millions of worlds like Chemos were cut off, unable to travel, communicate, or trade because of war and ravaging warp storms. The once prosperous world of Chemos began to regress, each generation suffering as resources, knowledge, and power bled out.
Yeah, the same story for almost all of humanity across the galaxy. All the planets, either civilized or developing or haven't been touched yet by, industrial investment, were either destroyed by warp storms or they were destroyed by wars, internal conflicts between different human factions or xeno races. And yeah, on Chemos, here comes the savior. Here comes the savior, Fulgrim.
After millennia, the ruins of a great age was all that remained. The technology, the supplies, and the people were lesser. Great fortress factories housed the last bastions of humanity, and under their weak sun and grey skies, all of Chemos struggled on a daily basis to feed its people. Everyone had to work, day and night, in the damp, cold, pollutant-clogged mines, just to keep the vapor mines and food synthesizers running. It was a hard, brutal existence that forged the surviving people of Chemos. Hard places often breed hardened people, and on a world where missing a single, disgusting grey nutrient slop meal was life or death, it changed them. Greed, selfishness, and ruthlessness was necessary to survive. Dueling and scheming were rife within this heavy oligarchic society. Each person was out to protect what little they had, be it with cutting words or blade. The millions of people dotted around the fortress factories for generations knew nothing else. To reach even beyond the age of 30 was considered special in this uncaring place. Most died, having experienced only grueling, back-breaking, finger-blistering work. They never relaxed, never had pursuits or hobbies. Most had never even heard music. But just as this slow decay would seem to doom them forever, they were saved. The child that had descended from the skies had been taken in. He had an aura about him, a supreme welling of majesty. He was humanity distilled. He was perfect. Hope bled from those luscious purple eyes. The boy grew into a man inside the fortress factory of Kallax. Over decades he transformed them. This superhuman began to fix and even improve the food synthesizers. For the first time in millennia, Kallax produced a surplus of food. And for the first time in living memory, the people had time, the most precious commodity.
Time to be with family, time to be by themselves, to rest, time to discover who they are, time to look at the world they live in, time to think about how they want to change the world they live in. He gave them that opportunity. He gave them that gift. You can say a lot of things about the Primarchs, later down the line when they join the Imperium of Man and when all turns to chaos. But, in the beginning, many of them really did save their homeworlds from terrible situations. Yes, there are some who save their worlds from terrible situations in a far more terrible situation. I'm thinking about Conrad Kurz and Nostromo. Yes, it might seem as if it was a perfect society, but underneath that it was still rotting. It was still the same. He just needed to leave the homeworld and they reverted back to what they always were, on Nostromo. So, yes, there are some Primarchs really who just were a blessing to their homeworlds, and definitely Fulgrim was one of them. He was one of them.
They had freedom and choice. Within a lifetime, one being ruled over Chemos, uniting the previous warring factions and fortress factories.
Yes, like clockwork. It is expected of a Primarch to rule over their homeworld, become the leader, lead their people to a better future. Yeah.
Fulgrim was his name. We have all been a victim of nihilism, the dark cloud that smothers everything, tainting the world into a dark and unforgiving place. But what would you feel for the person who dragged you out from it? The one who raised you into the light, wiping the mud and grime from your face. Chemos experienced a renaissance. The culture, arts, and pleasures denied to them from millennia flourished, and the superhuman Fulgrim, the enormous, silver-haired, amethyst-eyed, godlike figure had done it for them. For the children that were Lucius and Saul, it was a legend, an odyssey of their people from the darkness into the light.
So, Saul Tarvitz and Lucius weren't there in the very beginning when Fulgrim was reforming the homeworld of their homeworld of Chemos. You know, they are children after, those dark times, and they've been living in the golden age of Chemos. Okay, all right, that's interesting. I was going to say that this is the best illustration of Fulgrim, really, this image right here. How slender he is, how tall he is, his white hair, his purple eyes, and the claws on his hands, and this purple robe. Really, this is just the perfect image of Fulgrim. When I think about Fulgrim, I think about this guy. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there are other images of Fulgrim with armor, you know, when he wears his armor, but it's just not the same. It's just not the same like this. This is Fulgrim. Yeah.
A mythological story come to life, filling them with the innocent wonder only children experience. And just as their saviour was perfect to them, the ideal, that very sensation arrived at Fulgrim's doorstep. Arriving above the clouds of Chemos, the Great Crusade had arrived.
Your father's here.
The Empire from Terra descended, and with it, perfection. Fulgrim's father, the Emperor of mankind.
The Emperor is far from perfect, and the Imperium of Man is far from perfect. But because you see it as an overwhelming force, and you see your father having this overwhelming power of psychic potential, you perceive it as perfect, when it's not. It's just a performance. It's a show. His power also has its limits. The Imperium of Man also has its limits. But they have to posture. They have to show the rest of the galaxy that they are, the inevitability of humanity. That this is what represents a perfect human empire. But it wasn't that at all. It's just a fallacy. It's just a show. A very good one at that.
Perfection is not a state of being. It is a state of striving. The journey is all that has meaning, not the goal. The Imperium of mankind, a growing empire with its seat upon Terra, and the head that stands upon the shoulders of billions is one man, the Emperor of mankind. He was perfect. His knowledge was infinite. His prowess was unmatched, and his power was unwavering. His vision for humanity was a mark of greatness. There he stood, in beautiful, ornate, golden armor, the peak of humanity. The Emperor of mankind had come to Fulgrim, his son, his Primarch, bringing a grand destiny, the Great Crusade, the reunification of mankind across the stars. He brought enlightenment, the imperial truth, and he had brought Fulgrim his sons, the Legiones Astartes, warriors grafted with his own genetic material, men elevated into superhumans. As the great savior left to Terra, Chemos began to transform further, a bountiful growth festered by new imperial resources and Fulgrim's personal direction, even so far away in the stars. The young Lucius and Saul grew up upon a grey but flourishing world, the scars of the past only remembered by the old, but the mindset was not forgotten. Where once duels and conflicts echoed in the smog-filled mines, they were now center stage in grand amphitheaters. Pleasure, culture, and creations once denied to the people, flooded the streets, bringing colour to a world illuminated by perpetual twilight.
So, they had gladiatorial battles, they had colosseums where the people would, be entertained by others fighting each other in those fighting pits. Okay, alright.
The planet of Chemos had been united, not conquered, a feat only capable with a Primarch level skill in diplomacy. The consequences of this bloodless path left an aristocracy, families elevated from the rulership of fortress factories into the governors of cities, all in the service to their imperium. It is perhaps during this time of change when the boy that would become the man, Saul Tarvitz, was taken, only enjoying the beginning of the fruit bearing upon his homeworld, but elevated toward a different, grand destiny in the stars.
So Saul Tarvitz was the first one to be inducted into the training regime of the Third Legion. And then comes Lucius.
A fate that would soon come knocking for the boy known as Lucius. Perhaps born into a life not of wealth or poverty, Lucius would find himself joining the upper ranks of Chemosian society, like all those who had the fortune of being born after the arrival of the great saviour Fulgrim, and the Primarch's reunion with the Emperor. One singular word left the demigod's lips, a word that would change Chemos forever. Perfection. Perfection is a process. It is the fruit of the highest branch. It sits above us, just out of reach. You must climb until you have it in your grasp, lest our imperfections damn you to mere adequacy.
But the obsession with perfection and the process of obtaining perfection, it's unsustainable. It's unsustainable, especially for normal human beings who want to attain perfection, or Astartes who want to attain perfection. How will you know when you've really attained it? How will you know? How will you truly know that this is the benchmark of perfection? It's an illusion. But Fulgrim is your overlord, and he has stated that perfection, or the journey to attaining perfection, must be something that is within you all, citizens of Chemos. So, go on ahead. Let's see how far you get.
Ambition had been a bubbling fire for millennia, but in this new society it roared. Both Lucius and Saul were taught to climb, chase the fruit. But the young Lucius left his contemporaries in the dust. He climbed high. His talents, his skills, his athleticism was beyond his peers. The handsome young man was a beacon that drew greedy moths to his flame. Aristocratic sponsors came rolling in. He was a tool, a rising star whose coattails could be ridden. Your home, your family and your friends, the company you keep often reflects who you are.
But does he have, in terms of family, in terms of friends, when you pursue perfection, people become stumbling blocks. They become distractions in your way because you're obsessed with attaining perfection, or, getting through the process of attaining perfection. So they become obstacles, they become distractions. You don't value them as your family, you don't value them as your friends. You just see them as tools either to be used or to be discarded, because you have that singular goal of perfection and attaining it. I don't think Lucius really had a wonderful life on Chemos, really. He had to get to the pinnacles of society to pursue his perfection, no matter the cost. Even if it seems that other people are using him for their own gain, he is also using them for his own journey to perfection. But yeah, he never really had a warm heart. Yeah, it just doesn't seem like it here on Chemos.
And to the young, impressionable Lucius, he was surrounded by greedy, ruthless, selfish people, descendants of a ruling caste that had oppressed millions for millennia. As he grew, he found himself drawn to one art form, a path to a fruit that could make him perfect: the sword. His talent was supernatural, and again he quickly began to master this new pursuit. But there was something cruel within this naive boy. Each victory, each step taken in the climb towards the fruit, he looked back in disgust, because those who he surpassed were beneath him.
You see what I mean? When you pursue this type of perfection, everybody else is just an obstacle in your way. You gotta push them aside. You gotta trample on them to get what you want. And once you look back at them, you don't see them as your friends. You don't see them as your family. You just see them as a nuisance, as a waste, as tools that have been used and now they need to be discarded. It's sad.
Scars and wounds were the lucky consequences for the power-drunk Lucius. The worst was death. Some rumors even stated that he had murdered some of the dregs of society, claiming he had been attacked first. When he took part in the annual swordsmanship contest on Chemos, Lucius garnered the attention of a hulking stranger in the shadows. He dueled against a famed champion twice his age, slowly breaking him down, enjoying his superiority on display, humiliating his enemy. As he was about to be attacked by the champion's supporters and disciples, the hulking figure intervened. Lucius's skills had made him worthy for elevation. All that the boys Saul and Lucius had been through, their memories and dreams, would be distilled in the process they were about to endure. On a cold steel table, Lucius and Saul were cut open. Organs created from the Saviour Fulgrim's DNA was grafted onto them. They endured a pain that flooded through every nerve and fibre of their being. For years they were prodded and sliced, until after years, what emerged was Lucius and Saul, Legiones Astartes. They were Emperor's children.
This is beautiful. The armor is beautiful. Purple. Ah, looks amazing.
The Third Legion.
The Primarch. Okay. Fulgrim.
Pike sat up, alert now.
You're certain?
Fulgrim nodded.
I've seen it before. Secret societies were rife on Chemos in my youth.
No. You know who I was thinking as the voice actor for Fulgrim? The voice actor who acted in Ferrus Manus. Yes. The voice actor for Fulgrim in the Ferrus Manus the Amber King video. Really, that voice actor for Fulgrim was so convincing. You know, he didn't have a deep voice like what we're hearing right now from Fulgrim. He had a very higher tone type of voice, and it kind of sounded a bit classy and pizzazz. But with this Fulgrim, he sounds a bit too serious. He doesn't sound like someone who's a bit arrogant. He sounds like someone who's matured and who understands things in a very wise type of manner. Yeah. Because the Fulgrim I remember, the Fulgrim that I have imprinted in my mind, is the Fulgrim from the Ferrus Manus video. He was really something. He betrayed us. Guys, if you haven't watched it, go watch the Ferrus Manus video on the Ember King YouTube channel. Go and watch that video. The Fulgrim in that video was so convincing. Well done to that performance. But it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Let's just continue with this Fulgrim today. Yeah.
Periods of unrest often see the formation of ad hoc brotherhoods, looking for some sense of control amidst the confusion, or to take advantage of it.
And it's not Bucephalus.
She had thought as much earlier, before Corinth had convinced Fulgrim otherwise. Bucephalus wasn't the type to overthrow a government. Not with force of arms at any rate.
No,
Fulgrim said. He stared at the map, as if trying to isolate the situation from its component parts. Pike wondered at the expression on his face, simultaneously frustrated and excited. He was enjoying it, like a child who'd learned a new game. A shiver ran through her, a child's enthusiasm, slaves to a cogitator-like mind, ruthless, efficient, perfect in its clarity of purpose. Fulgrim attacked the problem from every angle, until a weak point revealed itself. Then his attentions focused with deadly precision, like a duelist exploiting a flaw in his opponent's guard.
Representatives of the patricians have visited me over the past few days, looking for some advantage,
Pike said. She poured herself a glass of wine, and then one for Fulgrim.
mostly trying to secure themselves an advantageous position in the new order. They appear to think that Pandion is living on borrowed time.
He might well be,
Fulgrim admitted.
Some of them even threatened me.
She smiled at the look on his face.
Obliquely, of course. Nothing so forward as a sniper's bullet. They're used to getting their way in these matters. They have little understanding of the wider implications of our presence. Or they might simply be that arrogant.
or both.
She nodded in agreement.
They'll need to be dealt with. Harshly is my preference.
He looked at her, eyebrow raised. She shrugged.
They insulted me. I can have my people kill them if you'd prefer.
Fulgrim laughed.
It may come to that, though I'd like to leave some of them alive. Functioning aristocracy is necessary, at least at the outset.
A careful dance, then.
She said.
I am a fine dancer, acclaimed for my grace and agility.
You know, if this was Mortarion, he would have killed the entire aristocracy of the planet. He would have freed the people and let the people lead under their own devices. That's Mortarion, and I would have supported that. This notion of keeping the aristocracy alive on a planet and, you know, for the sake of stability. In terms of the Imperium of Man, maybe this would work. I understand that. But if I was leading an empire and I was, you know, heading to a planet that needed to be under my authority, I'm cleaning out the top brass of that world. You know, I'm cleaning out the top echelons of that world and putting in my own people immediately, and not having the same people who have led that planet continue to be leading that planet, because how can I trust them? How can I trust them? Even with the fear of how powerful my empire is, in terms of threatening this world, those people who are in leadership are still going to try and do something to dislodge themselves from my hegemony. So to make sure that this planet is under my firm control, my firm grip, I'm taking out everybody who's at the top and putting in my own people. Or I select people who were not previously in power on the planet and elevate them to leadership. They will have, I will have their loyalty. I will have their fear. But yeah, Fulgrim, maybe your plans are good too. But I'm just saying, if this was Mortarion, they're all dead.
He preened slightly, and she couldn't help but laugh.
I never had the knack for it myself. Perhaps you can teach me.
I would be delighted.
Fulgrim glanced at the map again.
I'll send Kasparos and Grython to inspect the Agra Circle, I think. The landowners there require a gentler touch than those in the mountains.
I had another request.
Pike said. Fulgrim glanced at her. Pike paused, considering her next words carefully.
I ask that you consider being more careful in the future.
Careful?
No more running after snipers. No more baiting assassins.
I will not hide, Lady Golconda.
I am not asking you to. But twice now, you've acted on instinct, pursuing your attackers rather than waiting for support. You're aggressive and impulsive when provoked. That isn't valuable intelligence for a certain sort of person.
He kind of reminds me of Ferrus Manus in this instance, where he goes alone after, the enemy, and he doesn't wait for backup. That's something that Ferrus Manus would also do. Yeah, interesting.
Fulgrim's expression didn't change, but Pike could feel the sudden tension radiating from him. She forced herself to remain calm. She had endured the anger of one of the Emperor's sons before, and she could do so again.
Which one? This lady is brave, man. Really, she's very brave.
And what sort of person is that?
The words came out like a warning rumble of some great cat, somewhere between a purr of invitation and a growl of reproach.
Have our enemies revealed themselves to you, primary iterator?
He sat back, fingers interlaced.
Are their schemes suddenly laid bare before your keen insight?
His tone was mild, but the words were cutting, almost petulant. She took a steadying breath, knowing that to say the wrong thing now was to lose him entirely.
That is not what I meant, and you know it, Lord Fulgrim,
she said, her voice even.
This latest attempt may very well have been a feint, to better gauge your capabilities.
Or it may have merely been the act of desperate men. The explosion wasn't necessarily meant for me. It would have covered their escape and eradicated any evidence they might have left behind.
He sighed and leaned back.
But...
He hesitated. For a moment, his two handsome features cracked, and Pike glimpsed what lay beneath. Then he was smiling again, his mask artfully rearranged.
But...
he continued.
You may very well be right, my lady. Forgive me.
She nodded slowly. The Primarchs were not human, she reminded herself. They were both more and less than that. But like humans, they had their foibles. Fulgrim was arrogant, but it was an assumed arrogance. It was a mask he wore, a part he played. Soon enough, it might become the real thing.
Yeah, that's what I know him to be, arrogant. I don't see it as a mask, really. Especially like towards the Horus Heresy, when we're leading up to it. He did have a sense of arrogance about him that's just beyond anything else. I think maybe it's also because of the influence of that Xenoblade that he had in his possession, and the demon that was inside possessed his body. Maybe that's, where the arrogance just was total, complete, out there for everybody to see. But yeah, in the beginning, I'm not sure about Fulgrim, whether he was, hiding his true self, and he had this mask that just showed a sense of arrogance. I'm not entirely sure about that. But yes, towards the end, you could see it. He breathed it in and out. He was an arrogant Primarch who thought that he could become, a very powerful being under the Chaos Gods, and that he thought that he could save the Imperium of Man with Horus Heresy during the not Crusade, but during the Horus Heresy, and it also filtered down into his legion, the sort of arrogance that they have compared to the other legions, how they view the other legions, how some of the Astartes within the legion, like Fabius Bile, they pursue their arts of perfection no matter the cost, arrogantly so, where they think that they know more than the Emperor of Mankind, where they think they know more than the Imperium of Man, especially when it comes to meddling with the genetic sequencing or the genetic code of the gene seeds within the Astartes. Fabius Bile thought he could do something better. Yeah. So really, the part where Fulgrim has like a mask of perceived arrogance, I am not entirely sure about that. I think it's always been there. It just has time to grow to what it has become during the Horus Heresy and after the Horus Heresy, as he fully joined up with Slaanesh. Yeah.
For now, it was simply another piece of armor, a way to protect himself from a galaxy all too quick to take advantage of his flaws. She knew his story. She knew all of their stories. A boyhood spent in hardship, forced to endure terrible privation, and dangers that would have broken the sanity of a normal man. A slow, determined climb to conquest. It left little time for friendship, or for learning those lessons that made one a part of society. She smiled.
My late husband, one of them, I forgot which, had a saying, "Forgiveness is unnecessary between friends."
Fulgrim chuckled.
And are we friends then?
If you like.
She took a chance and patted his knee. Fulgrim laid his hands over hers.
I forget how tall the Primarchs are, so it's like good friend. Oh, that's so cute. That's actually kind of cute, Pike.
Fulgrim, the Phoenician, the savior of Chemos. To stand before him, exhilaration, wonder and joy would flood your veins. His perfect features, his silver hair, and ornate, beautiful armor. It was as if a demigod of mythology was before your very eyes. For Lucius and Saul Tarvitz, the sight of their Primarch, their gene father, awakened something deep within them. Even from his youth to his earliest days within the Legion, Saul was described by his brothers as a humble man, and the sight of his Primarch must have taken that humility to the extreme. Who was he, Saul, before this magnificent being? For Lucius, that cruel arrogance, fostered by his upbringing, must have been shattered. He had shown complete disregard for those who he saw as below him. But in front of him stood a being so far ahead of him, it must have been world-altering. Upon Chemos, Lucius had been special, a cut above the rest, but with his fellow Astartes at his side, such as Saul, he was no longer unique. They were all skilled, all worthy of being sons of Fulgrim, even if men like Saul thought that they were not worthy. After months of grueling surgeries, relentless combat and educational training, Lucius and Saul were ready to join the Legion as fully fledged members. In the time that Lucius and Saul joined, the Legion was in a state of renewal. Decades ago, with the scattering of the Primarchs, the 20 legions had headed to the stars, leaderless. It was at this time that tragedy struck. The 3rd Legion had earned glory and renown in the early days of the Great Crusade, but a terrible sickness arose. The viral blight, a flaw within the gene seed, became rampant. Brave and noble warriors dropped like flies, and at the edge of dissolvement, with 200 Astartes left, hope arrived. Fulgrim. With the union of Primarch and Legion, new gene seed was harvested. Fulgrim spoke to his remaining sons with a speech that dripped with hope and charisma, a legendary battle cry declaring, "You are the Emperor's chosen, his heralds, his warriors, his children. This is only the beginning." Over the coming decades, recruits began to flood in, men such as Lucius and Saul.
But you see, I'm also reminding myself of Magnus the Red and his 15th Legion, the Thousand Sons. Here, luckily, the 3rd Legion found a solution to their genetic abnormalities. And Fulgrim was able to, give them a portion of his genetic material so that the gene seed production can continue. But, when it comes to the 15th Legion and Magnus the Red, like I said before, I've stated this before, that the Emperor should have killed them off. He should have killed them off and restart the entire 15th Legion all over again once he's, joined up with his son Magnus, and ask Magnus for a piece of his genetic material so that they can continue the production of a version 2 of the 15th Legion. But that never happened with the 15th Legion. They were stuck with the flesh change. And it would forever be their curse. A curse that ultimately led to their destruction as well, as a legion.
A second generation devoid of the scars the Legion had endured, knowing only the absolute sheer will of their father that had brought the 3rd Legion to an equal place at the table. A legion to match all the others, and then, perhaps, even eclipse them.
Yeah, I don't know about that part. The 3rd Legion might be good, but I don't think they were one of the best. I don't think they were one of the most efficient. I'm not entirely sure about that. They think too highly of themselves, arrogantly so. And because, they were given a pendant by the Emperor, claiming that they are one of the most, astute and loyal legions in the entire Imperium of Man. But honestly, their performance is not there for me to witness. I've seen other legions do amazing things. I've heard legions do amazing things, other legions. So really, with the 3rd Legion, I haven't really heard anything tangible to say that, okay, no, this legion is serious, this legion is doing wonders. I just haven't heard anything.
Imperial Aquila, the Emperor's personal heraldry, a badge of honor earned in the early days, was for the 3rd alone to bear.
And that went to their heads. That went into their heads. That pursuit for perfection, just amplified once they got that Aquila from the Emperor. And that's when they also started to see their other legionnaire brothers from other legions as, people who are lesser than them, people who are not at their level. They were chosen by the Emperor. They are loved by the Emperor. They are praised by the Emperor, while the other legions are just extras in the main character lives of the 3rd Legion.
Lucius, Saul, and all their brothers would have to live and fight every day to show their worthiness of this honor. As the Legion was rebuilt, it became a reflection of the man that led them, Fulgrim. Perfection is not a state of being, it is a state of striving. The journey is all that has meaning, not the goal. Lucius and Saul were climbing the mountain towards perfection, a journey that had two different perspectives.
If this is Lucius here in this image, then yeah, he looks very attractive. He looks like a model.
To Lucius, he reflected the immaculate, talented, the ambition, the example, the very image others saw as Fulgrim's arrogance. But the other side was Saul, the humanity beneath the mask. He was stalwart, noble, duty-driven, the perfect soldier who perhaps did not have what it took to climb to the very top. As the two men joined,
because you don't need to do that. Soltavids knew that. You don't need to pursue something like that, because you will never be satisfied. You'll always be striving for it and become frustrated when things are not going your way. Soltavids knew that.
the Great Crusade, fighting horrifying Xenos and non-compliant colonies, the two embodiments of Fulgrim united. For nearly a century, the Emperor's children fought alongside Fulgrim's brother, Horus, and his lunar wolves, their numbers slowly swelling from elite attachments to Imperial Guard to near independent Legion force sizes. It was in this consolidation that Lucius and Saul would begin to forge a bond that only soldiers know. For men so polar opposite, their differences harmonized. They were unstoppable together, each a positive influence on the other. Lucius's skill drove Saul to work harder, to strive more towards their Primarch's road to perfection. And the humility of Saul reigned in Lucius's worst tendencies. To Lucius, Saul was perhaps his only friend. His inherent selfishness pushed others away, even his fellow legionaries. His absolute focus on his journey, his grueling levels of training, and effort towards a greater, stronger, more perfect Lucius. Others were not important in that journey, except for his equal, Saul, the brother alongside him.
That's interesting to hear, that Lucius saw him as an equal, he saw him as a brother, and he tried to change himself. He tried to be less of that arrogant, prideful person who would just throw people under the bus, especially when it suits him. Or just to walk over brothers that he considers to be weak. But Soltavids is the guy who anchors him into his morality, if I can say that, into his humanity. And on the other side of the coin, Soltavids was inspired by Lucius and his acumen and his abilities and his skills as a swordsman, as an Astartes. And yeah, really, they are feeding off each other as friends and as brothers in combat. And yeah, that's good. Really, that's good. However, this is the story of Lucius turning over to chaos. So it doesn't seem that it really worked towards the end. In the end, inevitably, he betrayed the Emperor, he betrayed the Imperium of Man, and he betrayed the Loyalist forces, he betrayed his brother Soltavids. But at least in the beginning he did try something,
But for Saul, friendship and brotherhood came easily. Discipline, not ambition, drove him, a trait that others flocked to. Even in the Pre-Exeor campaign, Nathaniel Garo of the Death Guard forged a bond with Saul, so deep he called an Astarte of another legion brother.
And Nathaniel Garo, he also went up against his own Primarch, Matarion, during the Siege of Terra, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, he was also a very loyal Astartes to the Imperium of Man. And just like, what was that other one? Loken, I think Loken. Yeah, part of the Lunar Wolves, or the Sons of Horus. He also was a very loyal Astartes to the Imperium of Man. It's good to hear that these different characters have all met each other. Nathaniel Garrow meeting up with Sol Tarvitz. I don't know about Loken, but it's good to see that they've met up with each other once or twice in a while, and during the Horus Heresy, they all had their roles to play. They all knew what had to be done. Maybe some of them did not make it. Some of them died at the hands of their Primarch. I know that Nathaniel Garrow, I think he did die, right? From the hands of his Primarch Mortarion. Right? I can't remember right now. Yeah, I can't remember. But yes, it's good to see that these loyal Astartes, had communication with each other. They considered each other as brothers, and that's good. That's good to see. Lucius?
2 even had small eagles carved into their gauntlets by knife point, a sign of the battle debt they owed one another, and when the 2 clasped each other's wrists, their vambraces would form the sign of the Imperial Aquila, a bond that would have galaxy-shaping consequences.
Enlightenment is not found outside of you. Real truth is inside of you, and always has been. To find it, you must cut away everything lower and deeper until you reach the bottom. Once there is nothing left, all that remains is the truth. That is what is happening to you. Eternal. You are on the cusp of discovering the real truth.
Repeat what you said about the trees.
Eidolon prompted.
The winged forms use them to secure prey for feeding, Lord.
Eidolon? Okay. Eidolon. Lord Eidolon. Okay. And the person who's talking right now is it's Lucius. Okay.
Tarvitz said.
I understand that.
Eidolon.
Oh, it's Tarvitz, sorry. sorry.
Snapped.
I've lost men to the winged things, and I've seen the thorn trees. But you say there were other bodies.
The corpses of blood angels, Lord.
Tarvitz nodded.
We've not seen them.
Antaeus remarked.
It might explain what happened to them.
Eidolon replied. Antaeus was one of Eidolon's chosen circle, and enjoyed a far more cordial relationship with his lord than Tarvitz did.
Have you proof?
Antaeus asked Tarvitz.
I destroyed the trees, as you know, sir.
Tarvitz said.
So you don't have proof?
My word is proof,
said Tarvitz.
And good enough for me.
Antaeus nodded courteously.
I meant no offense, brother.
And I took none, sir.
You used all your charges?
Eidolon asked.
Yes, Lord.
A waste.
Tarvitz began to reply, but stifled the words before he could say them. If it hadn't been for his use of the explosives, they wouldn't have reunited. If it hadn't been for his use of explosives, the ragged corpses of the fine Emperor's children would have hung from the stone gibbets, in ignominious disarray.
I told him so, Lord.
Lucius remarked.
Told him what?
That using all of our charges was a waste.
What's that in your hand, Captain?
Eidolon asked. Lucius held up the limb blade.
You taint us.
Antaeus said.
Shame on you, using an enemy's claw like a sword.
Throw it away, Captain.
Eidolon said.
Enemy's claw like a blade. Oh my gosh. Lucius, yeah, throw that away. Why are you using another alien, another Xeno alien's foot as a weapon?
Surprised at you.
Yes, Lord.
Tarvitz.
Yes, my lord.
The Blood Angels will require some proof of their fallen, some relic they can honor. You say shreds of armor hung from those trees. Go and retrieve some. Lucius can help you.
My lord, should we not secure this?
I gave you an order, Captain. Execute it, please. Or does the honor of our brethren Legion mean nothing to you?
I only thought to.
Did I ask for your counsel? Are you a Lord Commander and privy to the higher links of command?
No, Lord.
Then get to it, Captain.
Wow. Okay, they have a very cold, frosty relationship. Lord Commander Eidolon. Okay. And Lucius, you should have just kept quiet. Lucius, you should have just kept quiet. Okay? Don't be telling your Lord Commander, I told Sol Tarvitz that we shouldn't do this. No. Don't say anything. Just keep quiet unless they ask you a question. Don't say anything. You're just going to make it worse. I thought you guys were brothers. I thought brothers are supposed to protect each other, you know? I thought brothers are supposed to have each other's back, but you're not having his back here, okay? You're supposed to just keep quiet and just listen and just wait until they ask you questions, you know? Don't be the one to add more fuel to the fire. Because clearly the Lord Commander does not like Sol Tarvitz. He does not like him.
You too, Lucius. You men, assist them.
The local shield storm had blown out. The sky over the wide clearing was surprisingly clear and pale, as if night was finally falling. Tarvitz had no idea of murder's diurnal cycle. Since they had made planetfall, night and day periods must have surely passed. But in the stalk forests, lit by the storm's flare, such changes had been imperceptible. Now it seemed cooler, stiller. The sky was a washed-out beige, with filaments of darkness threaded through it. There was no wind, and the flicker of sheet lightning came from many kilometers away. Tarvitz thought he could even glimpse the stars up there, in the darker patches of the open sky. He led his party out of the ruin of the trees. Lucius was grumbling, as if it was all Tarvitz's fault.
Shut up.
Tarvitz told him on a closed channel.
Consider this ample payback for your kiss-ass display to the Lord Commander.
What are you talking about?
What do you mean, what are you talking about? You know what you said to the Lord Commander. You know what you said, Lucius. Last time I'm asking myself, I thought you said, you guys were brothers. Brothers are not supposed to do that. You're supposed to have his back. You didn't have his back in that meeting, You didn't have his back.
Lucius asked.
I told him it was a waste, Lord.
Tarvitz answered, mimicking Lucius's words with an unflattering voice.
I did tell you.
Yes, you did. But there's such a thing as solidarity. I thought we were friends.
We are friends,
Lucius said.
Are you sure? Are you sure? I think those impulses of, wanting to strive for perfection are starting to, point out again. And that's what happened here, where you saw an opportunity to bring down your competitor, your brother. You saw an opportunity to bring him down so that you can take his place. Yeah.
Hurt.
And that was the act of a friend.
We are the Emperor's children,
Lucius said solemnly.
We seek perfection. We don't hide our mistakes. You made a mistake. Acknowledging our failures is another step on the road to perfection. Isn't that what our Primarch teaches?
Tarvitz frowned. Lucius was right. Primarch Fulgrim had taught that only by imperfection could they fail the Emperor, and only by recognizing those failures could they eradicate them. Tarvitz wished someone would remind Eidolon of that key tenet of their Legion's philosophy.
I made a mistake. I used that blade thing. I relished it. It was Xenos. Lord Eidolon was right to reprimand me.
I told you it was Xenos. Twice.
Yes, you did. I owe you an apology for that. You are right, Saul. I'm sorry.
Never mind.
Wow. Lucius. You said you're sorry. Oh, wait, that kind of sent chills down my spine there. Oh, this is an interesting conversation.
Lucius put his hand on Tarvitz's plate arm and stopped him.
No, it's not. I'm a fine one to talk. You are always so grounded, Saul. I know I mock you for that. I'm sorry. I hope we're still friends.
Of course.
Your steadfast manner is a true virtue. I become obsessive sometimes in the heat of things. It's an imperfection of my character. Perhaps you can help me overcome it. Perhaps I can learn from you.
His voice had that childlike tone in it that had made Tarvitz like him in the first place.
Yeah, I'm also starting to like him now because of the way he's talking. Because of the way he's talking, he's also making me feel, very gushy, mushy. I feel like I want to be friends with him too. Oh man, Lucius.
Besides,
Lucius added,
you saved my life. I haven't thanked you for that.
No, you haven't. But there's no need, brother.
Then let's get this done, eh?
The other men had waited while Tarvitz and Lucius conducted their private, vox-to-vox conversation. The pair hurried to rejoin them. Over a century of grueling warfare, countless worlds, environments and habitats you couldn't even begin to describe, fighting horrifying, strange Xenos, all the way to primitive and advanced human societies. Lucius and Saul fought side by side, each putting their own life at risk in the defense of the other. With each campaign, their experience grew, till after decades, they both achieved the rank of captain, accepting the responsibility, especially as a representative as a chosen of Fulgrim.
And since they've both been, elevated to captains, right? Does that mean that they can still stay in the same team, or will they be commanding their own teams? I'm just wondering about the structure of, the military structure of the Third Legion. Once someone becomes a captain, or there are two captains, can they still be in the same team, or must they separate and be in different teams?
As the decades passed, the Great Crusade began to envelop more and more of the galaxy. World upon world was brought into compliance, and the authority of terror reigned over trillions. As Fulgrim, Lucius and Saul pushed even further and further, the Legion began to evolve. Their armor, their weapons, their battle barges, and even their bodies became an embodiment of the extremely high standards their Primarch had set. Lucius, Saul and the Legion had climbed ever closer to the fruit of enlightenment. With victory upon victory, external weakness was purged, and so began the shredding of weakness within their hearts. Enlightenment is not found outside of you. Real truth is inside of you, and always has been. To find it, you must cut away everything, lower and deeper until you reach the bottom. Once there is nothing left, all that remains is the truth. That is what is happening to you, Eternal. A legion of thousands of warriors gunning towards the height of paragons, but the interpretation of that had begun to create a divide. In the latter part of the Great Crusade, Lucius and Saul found themselves upon the vile planet coined Murder. Responding to a distress call sent by the Blood Angels, a task force under the direction of Lord Commander Eidolon made planetfall.
And this is the same planet that Horus Heresy and his forces also came to. They came to Murder as well, if I'm not mistaken. It's a planet with these... I don't know, they were like insects, right? Dangerous, very powerful insects, and they were very dangerous against Astartes, and the legions that were there already on the planet required further backup, and that's when Horus Lupercal and his forces also came to assist, which ultimately led to the communication with the Empire. What was that empire's name again? I forgot what they were called. Interrex. Yes, the Interrex Empire. Yes. Because this planet called Murder was a prison for the xeno insect-like creatures that lived on the planet. Yeah.
Decision that was made in spite of all the warnings and lack of intelligence. But glory awaited, and the great Eidolon wouldn't let others claim it. The assault was a disaster. Lucius and Saul found themselves assailed by disgusting, arachnid xenos with claws sharp enough to slice through ceramite armor. They hated these foul beasts. Their aesthetics were an affront to the Emperor's perfection. Their bestial attacks, their smell, the way they pinned fallen brother bodies to thorned trees like shrikes. The brothers fought back to back, Saul coordinating their surviving brothers, but Lucius was an island of his own, losing himself in the absolute focus of blood-roaring combat, taking down 2 for every one of his brothers. Lucius even picked up a severed alien claw to wield alongside his sword. He seemed comfortable holding an alien's blade. And besides, the disgust from his battle brothers didn't matter, as if the opinions of lessers would factor into his worldview. Just as they were about to be overrun, with Lucius ensnared and Saul shielding his friend, reinforcements arrived. An ally who the Legion had once been bound to, their brother Legion, the Lunar Wolves. Reuniting with Eidolon, Saul and Lucius were chewed out. Even though they had followed the reckless path set for them, the chastisement from Eidolon was an arrogant spiel, with all the markings of an out-of-control ego. To Saul, a man content to just serve, who retained his humility even under Fulgrim's philosophy, he despised this arrogance. We all know the frustration and hate we feel when enduring hypocrisy. But to Lucius, Eidolon was simply a reflection of a man further up the path towards perfection. His power and position made him right, and the path Fulgrim had set out for them also meant they had to acknowledge their mistakes, even the mistakes of friends. Lucius spoke out against Saul, an act that rightfully felt like a stab in the back, a small betrayal of the near centuries-long friendship. But to Lucius, how could admitting their mistakes be betrayal? His loyalty was to the path of perfection, something Saul had placed below his bonds to his brothers. But just as quickly as the conflict arose, Lucius apologized. Lucius was selfish, gifted, and obsessive, but he was not above admitting his faults too. Again, Saul had brought him back, their bond the balancing of each other's worst tendencies. Even to their Lunar Wolf reinforcements, they could see a stark change to some of the Legion they had fought side by side decades ago. Just as how the Iterator Pike had seen within Fulgrim the mask of arrogance, that one day it may become the real thing. Fulgrim's sons reflected that too. Men like Eidolon, and in time, Lucius, had become the mask, unlike Saul who knew it for the masquerade it was. With their evacuation from Murder, the honest, humble Astartes, Saul's presence had been the counterbalance to Eidolon. The bonds between legions was reaffirmed, with men such as Tarek Torgadon and Garvil Loken finding common ground with this disciplined noble marine.
Garvil Loken. Yes. And yet again, Gabriel Loken is now meeting up with Saul Tarvitz, just like Nathaniel Garrow. Yeah, all the loyalist Astartes meet up with each other once in a while, just by coincidence sometimes. But yeah, they meet up and they go on their separate paths, fighting their own fates for the Imperium of Man once the Horus Heresy begins. But it's nice to see that they've met up with each other once in a while, yeah.
The captains bonded in the fighting cages, Saul even bringing Lucius with him, despite his arrogance making him an isolated figure. Upon their departure, the overconfident Lucius challenged Loken to a duel.
Really? Okay.
Expecting to overwhelm him with his superior blade work.
That's the sense of your arrogance right there. What makes you think your blade work is superior? Have you tested it? Is there some sort of standard? No. You just assume that it's superior.
But he left with a bloodied nose from a dishonorable, unarmed strike, a grudge that would fester in the years to come.
The road to hell. Okay. Yeah, no, Saul Tarvitz is an oddity in this legion. Really. He is an oddity. I think there's very few Third Legion Astartes who are like him, I think. I think there are very few. Alright.
The path towards damnation is not determined in the end sum of a life. The blackening of one's soul is measured by degrees, from heartbeat to heartbeat. Perdition is not born in the din and fires of war, but rather within the silence of a solitary mind.
He had ruined his perfect face, Loken. His handsome face had been a mirror to the beauty of his Primarch.
Oh please, you can regenerate. Why are you crying? Why are you crying?
Though he did despise the casual mockery from his brothers. In their duel that was supposed to be a test of who was the greatest swordsman, Loken had ended it with a fist directly into the bridge of his nose. It had refused to set properly, despite the attention of the legionaries' apothecaries.
Oh, okay. I guess that cannot be regenerated. Oh man.
It was a mark, a constant reminder of his failure to be superior. A fire burned within Lucius. He needed to be better, stronger, faster, the greatest warrior. And that oath was renewed every time he looked himself in the mirror.
Oh man, he's never gonna forget this. He is never gonna forget what Loken did to him. Never, ever, ever, ever.
Following their conflict on the world of murder, Lucius and Saul would continue to build esteem within the now bustling legion. With nearly 2 centuries of war under its belt, the Emperor's children had become a source of much attention. Bureaucrats, artisans, nobles from Terra flooded to the beautiful works of art that was the Third Legion's fleet. Gorgeous marble statues, ornate golden carvings, sublime tapestries decked every surface. The evolution had been more than just external. Lucius, Saul and their brothers were as much artists on and off the battlefield. To be in the presence of the Third Legion was to see the height of humanity. The exceptionalism would overwhelm you, and you were never so aware of how ordinary and how unimpressive you were. Even amongst this exceptional brotherhood, Lucius and Saul had proven themselves, both with a combat record that was exceptional. in the recognition the two friends were inducted into the Brotherhood of the Phoenix, an unofficial warrior lodge that had spread throughout many of the legions.
Uh-oh. This is definitely the road to hell. This is definitely the road to hell.
Supposedly a place where rank meant nothing, and all could converse as equals, that the Third's culture of distinct hierarchy had inevitably crept its way in, for some were more equal than others, some were more perfect than others. The two Astartes stood before their Primarch, contentment beaming from them. Saul was grateful, and felt that he was not worthy of such an honour, but in contrast Lucius knew that he deserved to be there. They had grown so much from Saul, the noble, humble man whose ability to bond and coordinate made him a beacon for others to rally around. A man who earned trust easily, a man you wanted to follow.
A man you were willing to fight for and fight with. And Lucius is just not that type of person. No, he's not someone you want to be led by. He's not someone you want to fight for or fight with. You know, he seeks his own perfection no matter the cost. And if you're in the way, if you're slow, if you are not doing anything within his terms of perfection, you will be pushed aside or trampled before his very feet.
Lucius had become a champion, a perfect example of the Chemosian duelist ideal, and his skill was growing. Even decades after the events on Murder, Lucius challenged Loken again.
Yeah, like I said, he'll never forget.
But this time claiming victory easily. Lucius's skill had become so great that Loken knew now there was no one in the Sons of Horus Legion who could best him.
Wow. Okay, Lucius. No, well done. Well done. Well done.
The victory must have been exhilarating. He had improved. He was greater. The weakness had been expunged.
But are you satisfied now? Will this satisfy you? I highly doubt it.
After 2 centuries into the Great Crusade, the Emperor's children had built a reputation. The once mask of arrogance worn by Fulgrim was becoming all too real. Being treated as if being above humanity, many had begun to believe it. But this
is the sense of betrayal, for the Imperium of Man right here. Where now the servants of humanity, the Astartes, are thinking that they are above us. Their objective, their duty is to protect humanity, to grow the Imperium of Man, and they are not to think of themselves greater than the Imperium of Man or humanity. You are tools. You are to be having a a destined reality or purpose. And once that purpose and reality has been complete, you are to step aside so that the rest of humanity can manage and control the Imperium of Man, and we can head over to the webway with the Emperor. Your duty would be done. But the moment you start thinking that you are better than us, or that you are far superior than humanity, that's the trouble. That's where heretic notions start creeping in.
Character defect would blur into something worse as the Legion's fleet darkened the skies of the world Laeron. The path towards damnation is not determined in the end sum of life. The blackening of one's soul is measured by degrees, from heartbeat to heartbeat. Perdition is not born in the din and fires of war, but rather within the silence of a solitary mind. Descending down to the surface of Laeron, the Third Legion's host found this intensely strange planet, crawling with chitinous, multi-limbed Xenos, among towering, shimmering coral-like structures. The layer slithered through, and the melee became a bloody trudge, with every inch of ground a mix of superhuman and alien blood. examinations of the layer's form under the watch of the chief apothecary Fabius Bile revealed their secrets. The layer had been altered, their genetics had been moulded, each different caste uniquely adapted to their unique environments. Armoured scales, fins, membraned wings. They had taken the base and then improved. They had been made more perfect.
What is that? Is that the head? The face? Ugh. Okay.
The suggestion of experimentation had almost made Fulgrim strike Fabius down, but the doubt, the underlying insecurity that lies underneath arrogance, came through. The solitary mind of Fulgrim had feared only one thing: failing his father. Fulgrim couldn't fail the path towards perfection, even if the thought of mixing with Xenos DNA disgusted him. Failure was worse. The Third Legion left Laeron bloodied, many of the wounded finding themselves under the scalpel of Fabius, and a legion armed with a new precedent. Arriving back to the Legion from an operation under Lord Eidolon's command, Saul and Lucius met their Primarch, the perfect father that they in turn feared failing. Strapped to his hip was a silver blade, a gorgeous piece whose allure sent shivers down your spine, a prize taken from the ashes of the defeated Laer. The two could sense that the Laeron had changed something. The path towards perfection was accelerating. Lucius even received a pair of scars across his cheek from the Remembranza Serrana, a push to remind him of Loken's insult to his perfection. Scars that became a promise, an oath to a victory he needed to achieve.
So is this how he developed his obsession of having scars on his face? It's from all the fights he's been having with different people. And those are like, trophy insignias on his face to display that, I've fought against so many people and, I've defeated all of them. Okay, wow, Lucius. And yeah, that blade that Fulgrim has is the demon blade that will eventually possess him. Yeah, the same blade that will cut down Ferrus Manus on the Istvaan 5 massacre. Yeah.
Like meteors raining from the skies, the Emperor's children, Death Guard, World Eaters and Sons of Horus, thundered down to the surface of Istvaan 3.
Oh, we're starting now. It happened so fast. Okay.
The rebelling world would be set ablaze as thousands of superhuman warriors obliterated all that stood in their way. Saul pushed his way through the rubble and corpses, finding Lucius at the front, a blur of ceramite that seemed to claim a life with every swing. A complex network of scars marked the once handsome face of Lucius, each one the memory of a worthy kill, a celebration of his perfection and power. Reaching to fight alongside Lucius and Lord Commander Eidolon, Saul was elated to capture the sight of a true brother, Nathaniel Garo of the Death Guard. With embers and smoke filling their lungs, the Astartes pressed forward until they stumbled upon a strange humanoid psychic creature whose sonic blasts began to hound the Imperials. Garo was then struck, suffering grievous injuries, and then Saul rushed over, dragging his brother to safety. They had to kill it. Rushing up to the spine-chilling monster, Saul and Eidolon managed to destroy it, but with a talent that shocked Saul to his core. An equally awful, guttural sonic beam emanated from Lord Eidolon, rendering the creature to a puddle of flesh. The battle had been won.
Wait, is Commander Eidolon a psyker?
but Saul questioned what he had witnessed. But Eidolon bade him to be silent, that what he had seen was not of his concern. Finding the wounded form of Garrow, the carved eagles met once more as the Ceramite gauntlets clanked together. They were close. The both of them gave each other grief. One a legion full of stubborn, barbarous men, the other a bunch of pretty boys. The banter felt good, despite Saul's thoughts lingering on what he had just witnessed. Following the engagement, the secret was out, and under the direction of Lord Eidolon, Saul was escorted into the bowels of the Legion ship. Translucent cylinders with eerie, humanoid forms floated within, meeting the gaze of the hated Legion's apothecary, Fabius Bile. The horrifying, world-shattering truth came to light. The spider had been altering, experimenting with gene seed. Their gene seed. Mutations taken from Xenos, such as the Leia, had been grafted onto Battle Brothers.
So this is how Eidolon was able to use that attack. Okay. I thought he was a psyker, but no. They've just modified his gene seed to give him an extra oomph or power up. And yeah, like I said before, in terms of the arrogance of the Third Legion, from the Primarch it is filtered down to the Astartes, and Fabius Bile is one of the perfect examples of the arrogance, of this Legion, where Fabius Bile, in his arrogance, thinks he knows better than the Emperor of Mankind. He knows better than the Imperium of Man. He knows better than, those who produce the gene seeds for, the new batch of Astartes. He thinks he can make a better version of it, and this is something that is of perfection standards. When it's not. It's not. This is going against the Imperium of Man. This is going against the Emperor of Mankind and his design making of the Astartes. If he wanted you guys to have Xeno powers, he would have grafted it into the gene seeds from the very beginning. He didn't, because he wants this to be an all-human affair. Of course, with psychers, added into the mix. But he wanted this to be a whole human affair. And he doesn't see humans attaining, victory or power through the coattails of Xeno races or Xeno biology. So you are going against the Emperor. You are going against the Imperium of Man, Fabius Bile. And all those who support you, like Commander Eidolon, like Primarch Fulgrim.
The sight disgusted Saul. The Emperor was perfection. Fulgrim had been made in his image, just as they had tried to live in their fathers. To desecrate this with Xenos filth was abominable, a spit in the face of the imperial truth. It felt wrong. Eidolon and Bile tried to convince him. With these alterations they could be more. He could be closer to perfection. But Saul refused. His ambition did not outweigh his sense. He was the man others decried as destined to be a line officer, and nothing more.
That's why I'm saying, Saul Tarvitz in this Legion is an oddity. He is an oddity. Because the majority of the Legion think the same way as their Primarch. The pursuit for perfection. The gradual climb up to the tree and grabbing the fruit of perfection. And Saul Tarvitz doesn't have any kind of ambition or dream to do any of that. He is fine with the level that he's at. He's fine with the level that he's at. He's fine not being perfect. He's fine not trying to achieve perfection like everybody else. Yes, he sees his friend Lucius as a point of inspiration, but not to the point of wanting perfection no matter the cost. Yeah, he really is a unique soul in the Third Legion.
But that did not matter. Saul wanted to be perfect, not for himself, but for the Emperor, for the Imperium, and for Fulgrim, and humanity. The captain was turned away, his refusal seen as an insult, and he was ordered to never speak of what he had seen. A deep fog found its way over Saul.
You have a target on your back, Saul. You now have a target on your back, and they're going to try to kill you during the Istvaan 3, betrayal. They're going to try and kill you there.
The struggle within of what he had just witnessed, but worst of all, knowing that his Primarch, Fulgrim, had approved of it. The man content to be an ordinary, loyal, honourable man, made a choice. Saul relinquished his place and the spear tip of their next assault, pleading with the venerable dreadnought known as Ancient Rythanor to take his place. An almost unheard of statement by a son of Fulgrim, his friend Lucius even remarking the unfathomability of it. As Lucius, Rythanor, and contingents from the other legions made planetfall once more, Saul finally discovered a truth he had never hoped to see. Virus bombs, prepped and ready to immolate all living things upon the surface. Lucius and his brother legionaries were going to die. They had been betrayed. Only one could have been the architect of this betrayal. The War Master, Horus. Grabbing a Thunderhawk, Saul guns down to the surface, the thought of panic racing through his mind. As fire trailed in his wake, a signal was sent to the closest vessel, the Eisenstein, helmed by Nathaniel Garrow. They were ordered to destroy this renegade Thunderhawk.
He won't. He won't.
Perhaps if it had been anyone else in the universe, fate may have followed a different path. Saul made contact with his friend, relaying the horrifying truth. They had been betrayed. Thousands of brothers upon the surface of Istvaan were moments away from annihilation. The War Master Horus and their legions have betrayed the Emperor. Saul begged his brother, his friend, to trust him over countless battlefields, fighting back to back, spilling blood for each other. Garrow knew that Saul never lied.
And Nathaniel Garrow is very loyal to the Imperium of Man. He's loyal to his Primarch. He's loyal to the War Master and to this entire, Imperium of Man army. But he had to make a choice whether he was going to believe the words of one individual, comparing to the weight of responsibility that he has, that has been given to him by his superiors. And he chose that one person. He took that chance. He took that risk. He took that chance with someone who saved his life countless times, who he sees as his brother. He had his back. Lucius. You see what happens when you have someone's back. They have your back from day one. They're not going to betray you. They're not going to try to seek perfection by highlighting the imperfections. No, he will be with you, ride or die. Nathaniel Garrow.
Garrow destroyed the pursuing ships, clearing a path for his friend. Saul asked his brother what was terror like. He asked him if he remembered what they were fighting for. Hope. Hope for humanity. The imperial truth. The two swore that they would meet again and stand side by side on Terra.
I guess maybe in spirit they are standing side by side on Terra, because I don't hear anything about not Nathaniel Garrow, but Saul Tarvitz, during the Siege of Terror. I know about Nathaniel Garrow, he was there, but not about Saul Tarvitz, so I'm not sure.
Choral City, the last bastion for the Istvaanians, who had dared defy the might of Astartes.
Yeah, I remember this location from Cry Havoc, a Vox in the Void YouTube channel. If you guys haven't watched Cry Havoc, go watch Cry Havoc. After watching my reaction to Lucius and Soul. Yeah, go and check out Cry Havoc. Yeah.
Lucius led the spear tip, flanked by his fellow Astartes and Rylanor, Ancient of Rites. With ash and rubble ground beneath his tread, the dual-wielding champion of the Third rushed into the palace of the rebelling planetary governor, Vardus Praal. An almost miasmic vibration was echoing all around him, trying to seep its way into his armor. Finally, a warrior decked in ornate golden armor rushed him, creating a wound, a crack. Music flooded into Lucius. He felt his blood sing. Light and colours seemed more vivid as he lay his eyes upon his foes. A pleasure he had known his whole life was elevated to 11. His fingers felt electric as he'd launched himself at Vardus Praal. To see Lucius fight was like a dance, a fluidity of deadly strikes that could be called nothing short of art.
Guys, imagine, an Astartes with this bulky armor dancing around you with his blades. That's crazy.
As he drove his sword through the heart of his enemy, elation filled him. Lucius had done it, and like the end of a hero's journey, he had slain the monster. A story worthy to be immortalized within the halls of Fulgrim's champions, just like the legends of the Legion before him. Just moments after his great victory, Lucius heard a voice over the Vox, one he was utterly surprised to hear. He was glad to have his friend finally join the carnage, but Saul's response shocked him to his core. They had been betrayed. The legionaries on the surface had been sent here to die. The War Master, Fulgrim, had betrayed them and the Emperor. Disbelief washed over Lucius. How could this be? How could this be the truth? It must be lies. Fulgrim wouldn't send him to his death. What of all the victories he had earned for him? Look at how strong and elevated he had become for Fulgrim. He was one of the chosen. He had never failed. He was loyal. The great destiny of the Third had left Lucius behind. And why? Because Saul had rejected it, and Lucius was his friend. His loyalty to Saul had just cost him his life. The Emperor's children, Death Guard, World Eaters, and the newly coined Lunar Wolves made a mad dash for the network of bunkers that lay below the city. Saul, Lucius, Rylanor, Garviel Loken, Tarik Torgadan, Erlen, and thousands of Astartes loyal to the Emperor stood in dark halls, as fire and hate washed over an entire world above. Oceans boiled, forests melted, cities corroded, corpses and the unlucky survivors were torn apart, piece by piece, as virus bombs erase an entire culture from existence.
I mean, it must be one of the most excruciating ways to die. Painful. Just being killed like that. Oh. I'd rather just die by nuclear fire. I think that would be quicker. I think that would be quicker, that flash of light and I'll just burn and dead, finished. Not to be slowly be eaten away by the virus bombs and then, screaming and just wailing, waiting for death. which feels like it will take forever. Oh, gosh.
The masks had been removed. A betrayal decades in the making was revealed. Foul entities of the warp had corrupted the War Master Horus. The Great Crusade was over, and with his legions Horus would rescue the galaxy from the hands of an uncaring emperor. The galaxy would burn. A battle cry that would shape humanity for millennia. As the flames of a world on fire began to thin out, the Loyalists strode out to the eerie silence of a dead civilization. Inside all of them was confusion, and then the pulsing hatred for their betrayal. Their survival had been an oversight, a miscalculation, and the traitors would pay dearly for it. For months, the surviving Loyalists, commanded by Saul, Loken and Tarek, prepared a defense so strong it would cost the traitors 2 lives for each Loyalist. For a man who others mocked for his contentment at being a simple line officer, when the time called for him to be more, Saul rose to the challenge, his care for his brothers birthing this heightened ability to command.
Because it was a selfless ideal, a selfless thought, not something that is within him through selfish means like Lucius. He's rising to the occasion because he cares, because he wants the Loyalist forces that are surviving on Istvaan 3 to have a chance. He's not doing it for his own personal glory. He's not doing it for his own power and authority. No. He's doing it because he feels he's responsible. He feels like he must. And not through desire, but through duty. Something that Lucius, he cannot understand that. Or he can understand that, but, he cannot compel himself to think that way. Yeah, he's too much like his Primarch, Fulgrim.
Saul and Lucius found themselves attacked by men who they had once fought together on countless worlds. Men they had once shared life with and pursued the path of perfection with. Though Lucius and Saul fought together for months in this exhausting guerrilla campaign, a crack had begun to open between them. The path towards damnation begins with the silence of a solitary mind. Saul hated the traitors, but he took no pleasure from their deaths. But Lucius had begun to find a perverse relishment. His previous battle brothers were a worthy test. More scars that left a flowing of power and righteousness from each kill. Over months, the feelings of friendship Lucius had felt for a near century had begun to turn to ash in his mouth. Here was Saul, the brother who he had always seen as his equal, barking orders to him. They were the same rank, but he had the audacity to act as his superior, and the others followed Saul. But yet he had greater skill. He should have been further along the path towards perfection.
You haven't earned that respect, Lucius, to be a leader. You haven't earned that respect. And that is why people don't see you as someone that they can fight with, someone that they can fight for. You're not that person. So you might desire to become the leader, but ultimately the majority wins here, and the majority are following Saul Tarvet because he inspires, he leads with responsibility. He's someone who will have your back.
For the first time in his life, Lucius saw that Saul, his unambitious friend, who had natural talent, finally having ambition. Lucius had had to train ruthlessly, constantly test himself for decades, just to be Saul's equal. But what if Saul finally had ambition? That would mean he would surpass him. Like a poison, the anger grew and grew for weeks. Each sign of friendship, each display of protection became an insult. After another engagement against their previous commander Eidolon, the jealousy, the hatred, the insecurity became too much. Lucius respected Eidolon because he acted just as a Chemosian was expected to. A man the product of a selfish society who prioritized power and facade over loyalty. Lucius made his choice, and in the dead of night, he made Eidolon an offer. He offered Tarvitz.
Very disappointing. Very, very disappointing.
Tarvitz froze as he heard a voice say,
It won't do any good, Soul. The precentor's palace is as good as lost. Even you should be able to see that.
He looked up and he saw Lucius standing in the center of the dome in front of him, his shimmering sword in one hand and a shard of broken glass in the other. He raised the glass to his face and sliced its razor edge along the cheek, drawing a line of blood from his skin that dripped onto the dome's floor.
Lucius.
Tarvitz, rising to his feet, entered the dome to meet the swordsman.
I thought you were dead.
Bright starlight filled the dome, and Tarvitz saw it was filled with the corpses of Emperor's children, not traitors, but loyalists, and he could see that not one had fallen to a gunshot wound, but had been carved up by a powerful edged weapon. These warriors had been cut apart, and a horrible suspicion began to form in his mind.
Like anyone who betrays, their brothers in arms, or they betray their fellow brothers or sisters in combat, they have to kill everybody who they are close to. They have to betray everybody that they are close to prove to the people they wish to serve that they are going to be loyal to them. So yeah, Lucius is going to kill as many of the loyalist forces as he can, and also bring the head of Sol Tarvitz to prove a point that I am worthy to come back to the Third Legion. Oh.
Dead.
Laughed Lucius.
Me? Do you remember what Loken said to me when I humbled him in the practice cages?
Wary now, Tarvitz nodded.
He said there was someone out there who could beat you.
And do you remember what I told him?
Yes.
Replied Tarvitz, sliding his hands to the hilt of his broadsword.
You said, not in this lifetime, didn't you?
You have a good memory,
said Lucius, dropping the bloody shard of glass to the floor.
Who's that latest scar for?
Asked Tarvitz. Lucius smiled.
It's for you.
Though there was no warmth to it.
It's for you, Soul.
You betrayed us,
said Tarvitz, the hurt and disappointment almost too much to bear.
You killed your own men and let Eidolon and his warriors into the palace, didn't you?
I did,
said Lucius, swinging his sword in loops around his body. As he loosened his muscles in preparation for the fight Tarvitz knew must come next.
And I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
Tarvitz circled the edge of the dome, his steps in time with those of the swordsman. He had no illusions as to the outcome of this fight. Lucius was the preeminent blade master of the Legion, perhaps all of the legions. He knew he could not defeat Lucius, but this betrayal demanded retribution. Honor must be satisfied.
Why, Lucius?
Asked Tarvitz.
How can you ask me that, Soul?
Demanded Lucius, drawing the circle closer, and step by step, the distance between the two warriors shrank.
I am only here to thank my misplaced acquaintance with you. I know what the Lord Commander and Fabius offered you. How could you turn such an opportunity down?
It was an abomination, Lucius,
said Tarvitz, knowing he had to keep Lucius talking for as long as he could.
to tamper with the gene seed. How can you possibly believe that the Emperor would condone such a thing?
The Emperor? Are you so sure he would disapprove? Look at what he did to the Primarchs. Aren't we all the result of genetic manipulation? The experiments Fabius is conducting are the logical next link in that evolutionary chain. We are a superior race, and we must establish that superiority over any lesser beings that stand in our way.
Even your fellow warriors!
Spat Tarvitz.
Oh, Tarvitz. Oh. That shook me. That really shook me. Oh, wow. But, Tarvitz, you know what we must do to traitors. You know what happens to traitors. You must kill him.
Gesturing to the corpses around the dome's circumference with the blade of his sword, Lucius shrugged.
Even them. I'm going to rejoin my legion, and they tried to stop me. What choice did I have? Just like you are going to try and stop me.
You'd kill me too,
asked Tarvitz.
after all the years we've fought together.
Don't try and appeal to my sense of fond reminiscences, soul,
warned Lucius.
No more sorries. No more asking for forgiveness, nothing. Just die. Wow, Lucius.
I am better than you, and I am going to achieve great things in the service of my legion. Neither you or any foolish sense of misplaced loyalty are going to stop me.
Lucius lifted the blade of his sword and dropped into a fighting crouch as Tarvitz approached him. The dome seemed suddenly silent as the two combatants circled one another, each searching for a weakness in the other's defense. Tarvitz drew his combat knife in his left hand and reversed the blade, knowing he would need as many blades between him and Lucius as humanly possible. Tarvitz knew that there were no more words to be spoken. This could only end in blood. Without warning, he leapt towards Lucius, thrusting with the smaller blade, but even as he attacked, he saw that Lucius had been expecting it. Lucius swayed aside and swept the hilt of his sword down, smashing the knife from his hand. The swordsman ducked as Tarvitz turned on his heel and slashed high with his sword. Tarvitz's blade cut only air, and Lucius hammered his elbow into his side. He danced away, expecting Lucius to land a blow, but the swordsman merely smiled and danced around him lightly on the balls of his feet. Lucius was playing with him.
If that's the best you've got, soul, then you'd best give up now,
smirked Lucius.
I promise, I'll make it quick.
Lucius, you SOB. Gosh. But hearing the pain from Saul Tarvitz was really gut-wrenching right there. The voice actor for Saul Tarvitz, well done. well done. And of course, yes, the voice actor for Lucius, you are irritating because of the character, right? That voice, all I can think about is just this Chaos Marine enjoying this battle, enjoying killing his brothers, enjoying betraying the Imperium of Man, all in the pursuit for his own perfection. SOB.
Going from the pursuit of perfection in all things to ultimate depravity isn't a journey anybody makes in one step. It's a series of small ones, each one justifiable in its own isolated way. But after you've taken 100 of those small steps. You're a long way from who you were at the start.
He betrayed him, his oldest friend in the galaxy, the man who had been by his side through dozens of war zones, the man who had stood by his side in the fire and mud of battle. He had fallen. Surrounded by the corpses of their fellow legionaries, the two brothers fought, both with hate, but one with sorrow, and the other rampant jealousy. Saul knew that he could not hope to win, but he wouldn't let this be the end.
This kind of reminds me of Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi. You know, how they were also fighting, and Anakin was consumed by the dark side. He also had a sense of arrogance about him, ambition, hatred, jealousy. And Obi-Wan Kenobi only had pain and suffering. Here he is fighting against his son, his brother, his student, someone that he cherishes in his life. And yeah, it just reminds me of Saul Tarvitz and Lucius here, mirroring each other here with Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker. Yeah. It's just that Obi-Wan had the high ground. I don't think Saul Tarvitz is going to have the high ground here.
Duel degraded from a dance of swords to men punching each other in the mud, an unrefined display of primal rage. With the intervention of the loyalist Solathen, Lucius was forced to retreat. It would be the last time they ever saw each other. Lucius had betrayed the loyalists. His deal with Eidolon had assured his place back into the fold, back towards the path of perfection at Fulgrim's side.
I mean, even if he failed in bringing the head of Saul Tarvitz, he's still being inducted back into the 3rd Legion, because he promised to the Lord Commander that I will bring the head of Saul Tarvitz for me to return back to the 3rd Legion. He failed in that mission. But maybe the killing of all those loyalist forces was enough to prove that he is worthy to return to the 3rd Legion. Yeah.
And if it costs Saul's life, so be it. For it is only natural for ambitious men to leave behind others as they ascend. But it did burn him, not to have the scar across his cheek satisfied with a worthy kill. Recovering from another world-altering betrayal, Saul had no time to wallow. War was at his doorstep. Lucius's betrayal had left their defensive position flanked. Traitor forces began to swarm into every gap. As the brave warriors of the Emperor fell, they threw everything they had at the enemy. Each meter of ground lost would cost both sides dearly.
Wait, didn't Saul Tarvitz have an opportunity to leave the planet with Gavril Loken? Because I know Loken, he escapes and he gets to fight against his Primarch. Yeah, so I'm just wondering about Saul Tarvitz. Doesn't he also get to escape? He made a promise to Nathaniel Garrow that they would meet each other on Terra. So I guess that doesn't happen.
The man who had never let ambition take a hold of him, Saul, like a beacon of fire, rallied the last of the Emperor's children and lunar wolves together. Each new, devastating piece of information that flooded in fell flat against an iron will that rallied in the face of hopelessness. As the thousands of superhuman warriors clashed, the last of the loyalists began to whittle away under the suffocating march of Eidolon's troops. Half covered in rubble, smoke, and ash, Saul turned to the last 100 men alive. Brothers of different legions looked back at him. He knew all of their names. They were all men he was honored to die by, but most importantly, he had been honored to live besides. As a silent army of thousands stared from kilometers away, Saul and his men looked above. through the cracked citadel roof, witnessing the death from orbit approaching. Solathen asked Saul if they had hurt them, and with his last words in the universe, Saul replied, "Yes, we hurt them here. They'll remember this." Flame and death swept over the last remaining warriors of the Emperor. An action that should have ended in moments took months for the traitors, a delay they would never recover from. Saul had fought for hope. The Imperial truth was that great hope for humanity, a view that had to be murdered by the newly cleansed Emperor's children. Great men are not born great. It is something forged, and when the time came, he rose to it. Saul climbed, becoming the man others needed him to be. It was perfection. Victorious, Lucius was welcomed back into his legion. The two brothers who had embodied each side of the coin that was the Third Legion and Fulgrim. Now one side was facing down permanently, expunged. Finally, Lucius was back upon the path that Fulgrim followed, and the truth was revealed to him. The Emperor was not perfection. He was an obstacle. He had hidden the truth from them about the warp, about the gods, the primordial truth of chaos. A new prerogative had begun to spread throughout the Legion. Lucius and the others could sense this unspoken permission to explore, to take the pursuit of perfection and to ramp it up, cast down the barriers of morality, for it was only an obstacle. The Third Legion's pursuits became excessive. Their weapons and armor became more vibrant and shaped. Genetic splicing, a sight that once horrified Saul Tarvitz, was embraced. They relished in acts that were taboo, because each new sensation, each new experience opened their eyes to how laughably naive their previous image of perfection was.
Yeah, Slaanesh is taking note. She's like, yeah, you guys, you are my legion. I pick you guys. You guys suit me perfectly.
Where once had been a level of self-belief, bordering on the level of arrogance, Lucius stepped over the line, and it became the real thing. He was the greatest duelist in the Legion. His newfound depravity elevated him, taking a simple test of life and death to a torturous display of utter superiority. Just as how he left cuts and scars on his opponents in his youth, that sadistic streak rose again. With each pathetic enemy defeated, it felt incredible. We tell ourselves lies, such as, when I have power, I will be just. I would wield it and shape the world into a better place. Oh, the pride of mankind, to think you would not be corrupted, that you would not let the adrenaline pumping, enchanting sensation change you. The galaxy was at war. The unthinkable had happened. The favoured son of the Emperor, Horus Lupercal, had turned traitor. Sides were being drawn up. And so Lucius and the Emperor's children began their preparations for the next stage. The
Istvaan 5.
Galaxy was about to burn. As the Legion approached their next target, the Emperor's children gathered upon Fulgrim's flagship, the pride of the Emperor. All were mandated to listen to a masterpiece, a symphony crafted by the renowned Bekwa Kinska.
I thought Fulgrim would have changed the name of his flag vessel by now. It's no longer the pride of the Emperor, it's the pride of Fulgrim.
One of the many remembrances who had clawed their way to be attached to the renowned and magnificent Third Legion during the Great Crusade. In the grand theatre of La Fenice, Lucius, Fulgrim, and their brethren all bore witness to the masterpiece known as Maravaglia. Music drafted from the inspiration taken upon their previously conquered world of Leron, as Lucius...
It sounds like a demon. Maravaglia? Like, what was that other demon called again? Gashanal! From the Commissar video. I forgot his name right now. Oh my gosh. What's his name? Oh my gosh. I forgot his name. Sebastian Yarek, yes. When he was fighting against Gashanal, and the demons and the worshippers of chaos were busy chanting out Gashanal, Gashanal, and then Gashanal came through to fight against the Commissar and his forces. So yeah, this symphony that's been made sounds like a demon. Yeah.
Began to listen. He spotted strange, new musical equipment that he had never seen before. Pieces that began to emanate a sound unlike anything he had ever heard before. The vibrations began to ripple through their bodies, a sense of pure ecstasy, beauty, and disorientation shot through thousands of mortals and superhumans. Mania roared through Lucius's head as he joined into a mosh pit of slaughter and hedonism around him. The debased music blurred the lines between the warp and real space, and for the first time in his life, Lucius saw demons, creatures of spine-tingling beauty and horror.
Let's party!
Something only a foul mind could truly appreciate. Possessing the bodies of Bekwa Kinska and the other performers, pure chaotic taint washed over Lucius and the Legion, all laughing and crying as they fueled their new patron god, Slaanesh, she who thirsts. Arriving upon the world of Istvaan 5, Lucius and the Third descended down to the surface, preparing for an ambush against the incoming loyalist forces. Utter delight burned inside Lucius as he almost drooled at the idea of slaying more Astartes. Chances to enjoy the torture, enjoy the superiority and pleasures of war, as the Iron Hands, Salamanders, and Raven Guard, accompanied by numerous Titan legions and Imperial Guard, began their march against the Emperor's children, sons of Horus, World Eaters and Death Guard. One of the largest, bloodiest battles in human history began. A torrent of blades, bolt shells, plasma fire and armor crashed into a cacophony of violence, so overwhelming it would melt what little sanity you possessed. As the Emperor's...
Yeah, if you were a human being, just a normal regular person, and you witnessed this, this fight, you'd go mad. The types of noise that you'd be hearing from both sides. When you think about the traitor Marines howling and screaming and yearning for battle, and as they cut down their brothers, and, the loyalist forces also grunting and shouting and being in pain. Just the entire cacophony of battle noise. It'll make you go mad.
Children clashed head to head with the Iron Hands. A tirade of purple and black armor smashed against each other. Once the closest of all the legions, with Fulgrim and Ferrus Manus sharing the greatest bond between all Primarchs.
It's all coming down.
Now men Lucius had once fought with on numerous campaigns fell to his impeccable blade work. More scars, honoured with corpses. Each betrayal felt a little sweeter. The mix of recognition, sorrow, and then delight at having crushed a being now beneath him. The power was exhilarating. As the three loyalist legions tried to retreat, the full horror of the betrayal was revealed as the Night Lords, Iron Warriors, Word-bearers and Alpha Legion turned upon their supposed allies. It became an apocalyptic slaughter, leading to Lucius bear witness to a moment of history as his Primarch Fulgrim beheaded Ferrus Manus. A Primarch had died. The celebrations and trophies of the dead adorned the 3rd Legion ships. Pieces were turned into art, and captives were taken for experimentation. Lucius's skill and laser ambition had allowed him into the inner circle. Now he stood by Fulgrim's side, a place he knew he deserved to be in. As a token of his office, Fulgrim gifted to him the Leia blade, the exquisite silver saber that had taken the head of a Primarch. As the months began to roll by, with the Imperium divided and burning, the Emperor's children conquered planet after planet, each battle resulting in Lucius and the Legion pushing further upon the boundaries of excess. But something had caught the eyes of Lucius. Being in such close proximity to his Primarch, the man who he had seen as a god in his childhood on Chemos, all the way to the Primarch achieving perfection, he noticed something was wrong. Fulgrim seemed lesser. Perhaps Lucius himself had become so powerful that he had caught up.
No, don't let your arrogance take you that far. Don't let your arrogance take you that far, Lucius. No, there's a demon inside Fulgrim. Okay, it's taking control of him.
But it was different. Fulgrim began to make tactical mistakes. His knowledge of Legion traditions and rites seemed faulty. Lucius even witnessed him perform psychic abilities, and even in sparring, are two slaves that Fulgrim had overseen personally with all his senior officers.
Because it's a demon, it controls him now.
Lucius seemed to best him. A Primarch? Dark dreams and whispers haunted Lucius, leading him to the heart of the La Fenice theatre. Peering into this corrupted place, he saw a perfect portrait of his Primarch, with eyes showing horror too real for human hands to capture. Lucius was shocked. Lucius convened with the Brotherhood of the Phoenix, the Inner Circle. All despised him for his arrogance, for it was even too much for them to bear. But Lucius was not stupid, for he understood minds similar to his. He challenged their egos and stroked their vanity, tempting them into boldly capturing their Primarch, for Fulgrim was not himself. In a bloody struggle, with many casualties, the Legion's senior officers restrained the fraud and began to torture him.
So, because Lucius saw a portrait of Fulgrim, he then came to the realization that Fulgrim is not Fulgrim. Okay. Alright.
Only for realization to strike. Fulgrim let the ruse go and broke instantly from his restraints. The true Fulgrim stood before them, and he revealed the truth. It had been a demon bound in the Leia blade that had possessed him. A cretin that now resided within the painting, baiting Lucius to free it.
Oh, okay, okay. Oh, but then when did Fulgrim have the time to free himself from the possession of the demon and place it into the painting? When did that happen? Did that happen straight after the battle on Istvaan 5 or over time? I'm not entirely sure about the train of events of when did this happen. When did he regain control of his body? When did he put the demon into the painting? Okay.
The ruse by their Primarch had been a test and a revelation. A metamorphosis of Fulgrim fully embracing their corruption. That now their path to perfection belongs to Slaanesh. A new path for Lucius to follow.
The Angel Exterminatus. Okay.
The call of death is a call of love. Death can be sweet if we answer it in the affirmative. If we accept it as one of the great eternal forms of life and transformation. The moment where man becomes something greater than his rude beginnings. A flying, godlike, shimmering, diaphanous, beautiful creature.
You have some skill,
he said as they circled one another. The warrior didn't reply, and only then did Lucius note that he was no Iron Hand.
Raven Guard,
he said, recognizing the grip, stance, and angle of blades favored by Korax's shadow warriors.
I was going to say the beak. The beak mask. That's usually synonymous with the Raven Guards. Yeah, but okay.
That explains why you're still alive.
The Raven Guard attacked in a darting series of blinding feints, high cuts, and dazzlingly fast thrusts that Lucius parried, dodged, and backed away from in an increasingly swift-paced duel. The warrior wasn't just skilled, he was talented too, gifted even.
I haven't killed any blackbirds in a while. Since Istvaan, at least.
Giggled Lucius.
Istvaan, at least.
The warrior didn't react to Lucius's goading, which marked him as even more skilled than he'd thought. Realizing he would not easily get a rise out of the Raven Guard, Lucius put aside his need to humiliate his opponent, as well as defeat him. Time and time again they came at each other, spinning like dancers, locked in a routine that could only end in the death of one of the performers. Lucius studied the warriors they fought. His movements were like oil in the air, a slick progression of flowing poise. His blade work was flawless, technically perfect, but empowered by an innate understanding of the art form of the sword. With a start, Lucius realized that this warrior was almost the equal of him. A jolt of uncertainty flooded Lucius at the thought that the warrior had a chance of besting him.
Loken did say that one day someone is going to beat you. This guy might be the one. He might be the one.
He laughed, giddy at having finally met a worthy foe, his every nerve surging at the idea of defeat. The Raven Guard sprang at him with his twin black swords extended before him. Lucius rolled aside and sprang to his feet, in time to block a downward cut, and scissored his body to avoid a disemboweling slash to the gut. His own sword lanced down to the Raven Guard's neck, but a burst of thrust carried the warrior away again. Lucius unhooked the whip he had taken from dead Chemos, letting the barbed length of it uncoil like a hungry snake.
Just me and thee now,
said Lucius, removing his helm and tossing it aside. He reached up and raised a well on his cheek, a scar that should have long since healed, but which had been kept raw and marked with caustic powders.
You cut me before, and I will always treasure that wound. But that's all you're getting, Raven Guard.
Sharokin.
What?
My name,
said the warrior.
It's Nikona Sharokin.
Nikona Sharokin. That's a nice name. I just don't know how to spell that out. Nikona. Okay. Sharokin. It's like Shadowkin, but Sharokin. Okay. Okay. Ooh. Let's continue.
Just so you know who it is that's killed you.
Nikona Sharokin,
said Lucius, rolling the name around in his mouth as though experiencing a new flavor.
No, that's not the name of a man that can kill me.
You don't get to decide,
said Sharokin, one sword held high over his head, the other extended low. They circled one another warily, each aware of the other's skill, and knowing they were well matched. Neither paid heed to the battles raging around them, the life and death struggles being played out in the ruins of a dying race's tomb. All that mattered was the purity of the duel. All other pretenders to this fight were dead, and all that remained to be decided was which of them would walk away. Lucius attacked first, lashing his whip at Sharokin's head. The barbed tip scored a line through the faceplate and left eye lens. Lucius followed up with a low cut to the thigh, redirected at the last instant for the groin. Sharokin read the move and blocked with the cross blades, spinning on his heel to hammer his elbow into Lucius's head. But Lucius wasn't there, rolling forwards beneath the blow to thrust his blade at the base of Sharokin's spine. More flame from the Raven Guard's jump pack carried him away from the paralyzing strike. He spun as he landed to face Lucius once more.
You're fast, son of Corax,
said Lucius.
Too fast for you, traitor.
Lucius smiled.
You won't goad me into foolishness.
Even before Lucius finished speaking, Sharokin gunned his jets again. Instead of dodging, Lucius leapt up to meet the Raven Guard with his whip, slashing and his sword stabbing. He saw the black outline of the Raven Guard coming at him and stabbed his sword into where Sharokin's throat would be. His blade struck only empty air, and the shock of that almost cost him his life. Somehow, impossibly, the Raven Guard wasn't there. A blade plunged into his side, and Lucius twisted away from the fiery, unexpected, and exquisite pain. Lucius spun, feeling suddenly helpless as the Raven Guard slipped around him with dizzying speed, his blade stabbing again and again. Then the Raven Guard was at Lucius's back, pushing him to his knees.
This is where it ends.
Blades pressed down through his gorget into the hollows either side of his neck.
It gives me no pleasure to do this,
said Sharokin.
You are nothing to me. Simply a rabid dog that needs to be put down.
Lucius tried to speak.
No. I don't want to hear what you have to say. Just die, Lucius. Just die.
Say something to mark his death. Sharokin's blade stabbed down behind Lucius's collarbone, tearing through his heart and lungs, severing arteries and wreaking catastrophic damage that not even a Space Marine's post-human physiology could undo, and all thoughts of worthy valediction died with him. The call of death is a call of love. Death can be sweet if we answer it in the affirmative. If we accept it as one of the great eternal forms of life and transformation, the moment where man becomes something greater than his rude beginnings, a flying, godlike, shimmering, diaphanous, beautiful creature. Years of climbing down the descent of madness had become Lucius's, and the Emperor's children's climb towards their path of perfection. The traitor forces had gone from what was a deviation in character to the personification of the worst traits of humanity. Lucius, Fulgrim, and the Emperor's children had fully let the corruption flow over them. For Lucius, this only seemed to accentuate his worst tendencies. He acknowledged the gods. He knew of the great boons of Slaanesh, but he did not bow and grovel. He wholeheartedly believed he did not need to earn anything. For
Slaanesh will give it to you anyway. She'll give it to you anyway. You know, because from the title here, Lucius, the eternal champion of Slaanesh, she's going to give it to you anyway. You'll be her champion, whether you like it or not.
He was the greatest swordsman, the greatest duelist. He took what he wanted. He followed where he wanted. He indulged in what he wanted. The corruption of Slaanesh had become more psychological for him. The thrill of killing was nothing compared to the overwhelming influx of pleasure he felt, slowly picking apart his opponents. His mind had been changed. To acknowledge any mistakes was weakness, imperfect. To point out a flaw or to chastise Lucius, he felt an overwhelming sense of anger, a threat to his self-image. It was abhorrent and had to be crushed violently, a self-defense mechanism that lacked the strength to acknowledge shortcomings, to acknowledge insecurities. But to Lucius he had none, so they were all lies. Gone was the man who had apologized to his friend Saul. Gone was the man who had brothers and friendship, for he was above it all. As the Imperium burned for years, hundreds of worlds crushed under the shadow of the depraved Third Legion, Fulgrim finally directed his forces together towards a new goal. A weapon that could turn the tide, as the traitors began to turn their attentions towards terror itself. Assembling before Perturabo, the Primarch of the Iron Warriors, and his legion, they saw what the Third Legion had become. 500 warriors in the shimmering purple of the Emperor's children emerged from the smoke, and their appearance drew a gasp of shock from the assembled Iron Warriors. Lashes of vivid pigment were spattered over contrasting hues and clashing colours, offending the eyes with their garish disregard for the Legion's heraldry. Jagged spikes jutted from pauldrons, and their helmets were Byzantine winged affairs. The heart within was reflected. Lucius wore upon his battle plate displays of ravenous excess. Slaves dragged in chains in this parade of madness. Flayed skin artworks, fumes that began to tickle the heart and spine of any who dared partake.
Oh my gosh.
The sight was disgusting, only appreciated by those too devolved to have sense. With Lucius as his personal guard, Fulgrim came to offer his brother Perturabo the chance to claim this weapon, the Angel Exterminatus, together.
Together. There's no together when it comes to chaos. No.
Their path took them directly into the Eye of Terror, the malignant storm that was a breach from real space into the warp. As the traitorous forces followed the grueling path, they were ambushed. A cruiser ship, the Sissu Fem, a mashing together of loyalist survivors of Istvaan 5, launched themselves at the traitors. It felt exhilarating for Lucius once more to test himself upon Astartes, and the layer blade in his hand tasted Iron Hand's blood once more. In the midst of the melee, Lucius caught sight of a shadow in his periphery, a darting figure that finally made a killing strike. A cut was cleaved across Lucius's face. Only one. Garviel Loken had ever left a mark upon him, and a fresh wound filled him with maddening delight and hate.
It's Shadowkin.
This pathetic little raven had cut him. Finally a challenge to test himself, to see how much more perfect he was becoming. The two would clash again upon the surface of the Crone world the traitors were assaulting, each traitor force leaving ancient Eldari automaton corpses in the wake of their march. Again the shadow came for him. The surviving loyalists ambushed them. Just before the Eldar citadel, Nakonia Sharokin of the Raven Guard's black emotionless eyes looked into the bloodshot, mad ones of Lucius. Lucius began to taunt and goad him, enjoying himself. but quickly he found he had to use all of his concentration. He was being matched. His opponent's skill was equal. Impossible. For how could any be his equal? Blades clash in a whirl and dance, so fast that other Astartes would have been overwhelmed. The duel was incredible. No one had pushed Lucius this far before. As Lucius made his attempts to end this little plaything, twin black swords plunged into his dual hearts. Blood poured from him as Lucius heard words he had dreaded most in this universe. It gives me no pleasure to do this. You are nothing to me. Simply a rabid dog that needs to be put down. The last vestiges of life left Lucius, but this seemingly miserable end had not gone unnoticed.
Your patron god has come to save your life.
For the call of death is a call of love. Death can be sweet, a chance to become something greater, a godlike, shimmering, diaphanous, beautiful creature.
Rebirth. Okay.
Always, it was just ahead of him, taunting him, drawing him on. Right now it appeared as a slender minaret of fluted ivory and mother of pearl, with a cupola that burned in silver fire. It stood amidst the thick forests of trees that ride with their own sick radiance. Living flames leapt from branch to branch, giggling with childish amusement, as the forest grew and fell back, denying him a way through.
Scared of me, are you?
The blue flame at the top of the tower flared brighter in response. Lucius drew his sword, its radiant silver. It had been a gift from his Primarch, too noble a weapon for hewing, but needs must. Lucius hacked at the glass trees, shattering glowing limbs to fragments with every swing. He pushed deeper into the glittering forest, shorn branches reforming behind him with the sounds of windows breaking in reverse. The capering flames screeched in annoyance, but Lucius ignored them. They darted in and sought to burn him. He unhooked the barbed wire that he had lifted from Chemos and lashed them back. They squealed and fled each agonizing touch. Then the forest parted, and Sanak's tower was before him. Closer now, he saw the mercury-bright flame, veining the structure like a living thing. A warrior in crimson armor stood in a dueling circle of flattened sand before the tower. Twin swords hung at his waist. One pommel cat with a dark jackal's head, the other a white hawk. Both were hooked Kopesh blades with strange shimmering curves, which gave Lucius a thrill of anticipation. To face a new blade was always interesting.
I hear you've been looking to fight me, Lucius.
Sanak said. The warrior's face was obscured behind a helm with a silver crest and faceplate.
His name is Sanax. Okay.
Are you Sanact?
I am Sanact of the Athenaeans, yes.
I've come to fight you.
Is it your wish to die?
Lucius laughed.
I think I've tried that once already, so I'm not about to try that again.
Sanax removed his helm, revealing a youthful face and close-cropped ash-blonde hair, innocently handsome in a way that Lucius couldn't wait to destroy.
Your feelings say different. You want to know why you came back. That is why you sought me out, to find a swordsman as skilled as the Raven, one who revels in the kill.
Sanact said.
They tell me you're good.
I'm the best of my legion.
That's not saying much.
Lucius hissed.
Man, Lucius. Oh.
Lucius put the whip to his belt and entered the dueling circle. Sanact drew his swords, one crystalline-edged and glittering with witch fire, the other a simple energy blade. Lucius rolled his shoulders and swung his blade to loosen his wrists. He had sparred with his own legion, but had stopped short of killing anyone since Yidris. No such restraint was needed here. He circled Sanact, studying his movements, assaying his reach and footwork. He was strength and speed, confidence that crossed into arrogance. So like himself it was almost funny.
I assure you, I will defeat.
Lucius attacked. Before the Thousand Suns warrior finished speaking, all of his strikes were repulsed with casual ease. They broke apart and circled again, studying one another, using obvious cuts and feints to test the other's mettle.
Wow, Lucius doesn't want to waste time. He wants to start right now.
You have natural ability, but I have studied every school of blade since the first swords were hacked from the Debruja flint beds of old Earth.
Sanact said. They came together again in a clash of blades. Sanact was blindingly fast, his two weapons moving in perfect concert. Lucius could fight with two swords, but preferred the focus of a single blade. Sanact's blades cut high and low, forcing him to work twice as hard to keep them at bay.
Your thoughts betray you,
Sanact said. Lucius heard the first traces of amusement in Sanact's voice.
So what, he's reading his mind? Okay.
You fight with passion, but I can feel every attack before you make it.
Are you actually giving me tips on technique?
Sneered Lucius. Sanact swayed aside from a throat-opening thrust.
I am a scholar of martial knowledge. It is my duty to pass on what I have learned to others by example.
Yeah, maybe you shouldn't do this with Lucius. No, you should rather keep quiet. Become like Shadowkin. Just keep quiet. You know, tell him your name and start fighting. That's it. So stop telling him that I'm a teacher and I teach people how to fight. No. What are you doing? What are you doing?
Thanks, but I don't need your help,
retorted Lucius.
You are manifestly incorrect.
Anger touched Lucius, but instead of controlling it, he let it consume him. An angry swordsman made mistakes, but now he needed that anger. He threw himself at his opponent, disregarding any notion of defense, just going for the kill. He wanted to take this arrogant cur apart, to gut him without mercy and without finesse, to give him an ugly death. Sanact turned the attacks aside with lightning-fast parries and ripostes, but Lucius kept up with unrelenting pressure. He forced him back to the edge of the circle, relishing the confusion he saw in Sanact's eyes, no longer able to pick out Lucius's emotions from the morass of anger.
You see? You see what you've done now? By teaching him your abilities and what you're capable of doing, he's exploiting it. You see?
Sanact was falling back onto techniques learned by rote and ancient teachers, and that just wasn't good enough. Lucius awoke upon the apothecarian table. He had died. He was sure of it. Twin blades had pierced his heart, and yet he lived. Nakonia Sharokin, the Raven Guard, had defeated him, and he took no pleasure from it. A thought that was utterly alien to Lucius's mind. If anyone had achieved the impossible and defeated him, how could they not roar with triumph? How could they not be overcome with satisfaction?
Because not everybody is like you, Lucius. Not everybody is like you.
The champion of the Third Legion had walked a path of perfection, a journey rife with ambition, betrayal, and sedition. A life of utter focus on blade work. It consumed him, creating this mad feed that exuded pleasure from slaying his foes, demonstrating his power and perfection. Dark eyes bore down on the boy from Chemos, taking utter delight in each vile act he did, fueling the Prince of Pleasure. Even the cursed apothecary Fabius Bile had no idea how Lucius had returned to life, a mystery he would begin to understand in the years to come. Following the events of the Angel Exterminatus, the Third Legion was directionless. Fulgrim's grand quest had succeeded, and he had become the Angel Exterminatus, fueling a dark apotheosis with a life force stolen from his brother Perturabo. A multi-limbed, sensual, snake-like entity roared into existence as Fulgrim ascended into a demon Primarch. Leaderless, elements of the Legion scattered, turning into warbands that simply ravaged the galaxy.
He turned into one of the most disturbing Primarchs ever. It's Mortarion and it's Fulgrim. Okay, yeah, Angron too, but Angron looks cool, as a winged demon prince. Yeah, he looks kind of cool, but Fulgrim, no. Mortarion, no. What's going on there? Ugh.
Loosely under the authority of the corrupted War Master Horus, Lucius's ego had been hit. He needed to reclaim his feelings of power again. He needed to prove to himself that he was close towards perfection. He needed to fight the deeply riddled insecurity of weakness. And so he sought out worthy challenges. Sanact of the Athenaeans, a surviving member of the broken Thousand Sons, was a name whispered to Lucius, and Astarte said to be the greatest, something the vile Lucius couldn't resist. Alone, Lucius made his way to the crumbling ruins of the planet of the sorcerers, cutting his way through a glass forest until he finally met his opponent. Two arrogant men faced each other, both far cries from the men they were during the Great Crusade, both more powerful, but yet both lesser too. The duel had begun, and the two matched each other with blinding speed. It was the pinnacle of martial contest, as each stroke was utterly perfect, pulling deep from that pit of malice that had always been a part of him. Lucius finally disarmed Sanact, but before he could claim his prize, the Thousand Son was saved with the intervention of Azek Ahriman, the first captain of the Thousand Sons.
Well, Isaac, long time no see.
Lucius was furious, and decided he would accompany Ahriman on his quest to retrieve the Iron Oculus, for the sole purpose of waiting for an opportunity to duel Sanact. Thousands of bodies fell to Lucius's blade upon the quest. As the group finally made their way to the world of Nike, the Thousand Sons, Lucius, and their Imperial enemies both became trapped within a crystal labyrinth. Within this shimmering labyrinth, Lucius was confronted by the forms of Sanact, Garviel Loken, and Nakonia Sharokin, ghosts of his one true fear, losing. Drawing the Leia blade, Lucius attacked, defeating them all, overcoming the insecurity of weakness. But at the moment of triumph, the moment where he would release the burdens to his perfection, he saw it. He saw a reflection of his previous, uncorrupted self, Lucius, the son of Chemos.
And my oh my, was he handsome. Not this scar-ridden face with Slaanesh tendencies and a long tongue coming out and looking all, hideous. He was handsome, just like his Primarch.
Servant of the Emperor and friend of Saul Tarvitz, how far had he fallen? But any semblance of reflection or sorrow could not reach his heart. He screamed as he only perceived a reminder of his weaknesses. Lucius was swallowed by the crystal maze, lost within this mad prison. only escaping to enact a rage against the material universe. He lay in that fog until a psychic scream rippled through every fibre of his being. Fulgrim, just on instinct, he knew what this meant. Their lord was calling his children to his side. Lucius returned as the remnants of the 3rd Legion gathered in preparation for the end game.
The attack on Terra.
The siege of Terra. The shambling, disgusting, sensual mess that was the Emperor's children darkened the skies of the throne world, genetically manipulated, with all manner of sensory machines grafted, with iconography and artwork knitted from living things you could barely call human. The traitorous forces burned the throne world, beginning the most grueling, horrifying siege in human history on the world that Saul had hoped to stand side by side with Nathaniel Garrow on, felt the wrath of Lucius and the Emperor's children.
Mere killing should never be enough. How much more intense is the feeling of inhaling the mist created when you vibrate a foe's body until he vaporizes? How much more completely have you explored all a person can offer you than when you breathe them into yourself, leaving only the memory of them still a part of this world?
Slanted, coal-rimmed eyes beheld the Eternal, bright with cunning and malicious intelligence.
Is that a Dark Eldar?
Dark sable hair threaded with crimson dye was scraped up in a tight scalp, locked over in a circlet of the same dark crystal she stood upon. Contoured plates of segmented armor sheathed her inhumanly tall, slender physique, inked with elaborate and revolting patterns that flowed and writhed upon the dark surfaces. They framed a fist-sized pendant of a skull pierced by 3 splinters of bone, set at the center of her chest, and carved from wraithbone as white as untouched snow.
Definitely a Dark Eldar.
A withered, androgynous slave of a species Lucius could not identify, cowed in chains on the plinth at her side. It carried a long, slender device in its grimy claws, holding one end of it up in front of her lips. She spoke again, her words twisting through the device and rendered into Gothic with a sibilant hiss.
Oh, so you don't know how to speak Low Gothic? Dark Eldar? I mean, you guys live for a very long time. You also accumulate knowledge from the Materium world. So I would assume that you would know how to speak Low Gothic to these lesser beings, to these Monkai. But I guess you don't know how to speak Low Gothic.
My contemporaries find it a touch theatrical. But what is life without art?
Hello, little god maker.
Oh my, Lucius. No, don't talk like that.
Lucius bared his cage of needle teeth in a smile at the Dark Eldar. The air was filled with a low shriek of anti-grav engines. Eldar in spiked carapace suits swept down around Lucius, tearing through the air on angular, bladed skyboards. The aliens whooped and jeered at Lucius as they spun in increasing, tighter circles around him, brandishing hooked glaives and serrated daggers.
Pay them no mind,
said the Eldar, raising an arm and throwing back the shoulder of her cloak of dark fur and flayed skin. With a gesture, the Hellions came to a halt, glaring at Lucius with undisguised hunger.
They are always eager to sample the newest additions to my menagerie.
So let them.
Lucius said. His head was swimming so thoroughly that at first he didn't realize that it was he who had spoken. The proximity to so many of the Eldar was an intoxicating thing. The strangled beat of their withering hearts, their cloying, black scent sinking through to his marrow.
Let me taste their flesh, their blood. Slaanesh will relish the flavor of their souls.
Your god.
The Eldar laughed, like a serrated blade scraping over glass.
Your idiot race does so amuse me. The things it bends the knee to in worship.
I would not go so far as to call myself devoted,
said Lucius, still bearing his predatory grin.
But one needs no faith to see how the youngest god's love for you transcends all the others. The ones who ushered forth his birth. I have received gifts from him. And what sort of monster would I be if I did not unite your souls with him in thanks?
The Comorite mistress considered his words for a moment.
Ah, yes. Gifts. Tell me.
Gifts.
The one of your race I barter with, trading flesh for secrets. The Man-Flayer. He has told me of you. The one your rabble calls eternal. He tells me of your gifts. He says you live, despite tasting the embrace of oblivion time after time.
She reached up, holding just shy of stroking a clawed fingertip across Lucius's cheek.
Yeah, Lucius, how do you do that? Is this like the gift from Slaanesh? You know, making you immortal this way, where you can suffer no matter how many wounds, even fatal ones, you will regenerate, you will come back. Wow.
Death
So you're like Vulcan.
refuses to hold you. You die, and yet you rise. And on, and on. I exchanged many secrets to acquire you. I wish to learn how.
Cut!
Ladies, stop. This Dark Elder's voice is so seductive. Oh my gosh. Stop.
Me loose,
said Lucius, leaning forward until the tendrils bit deep into his armor.
Feed me that little wretch of yours, and I will tell you in privacy.
The Eldar smirked. Withdrawing her hand, she ran her fingers across the skull of her slave, carving gashes into its flesh with the crystal claws that tipped her gloves.
It is a miserable thing, is it not? That is so, but it is not wholly useless to me.
She gestured at the device the wretch held. Lucius ran his tongue over his fangs.
When you speak like that, the way your face moves, I can't help myself but think of how I'll shudder when I eat your eyes.
He tilted his head.
You know, for a moment it kind of sounded sexual, but then a split second later it doesn't sound sexual anymore. This just sounds nasty, disgusting depravity of the highest order. Really. Hey.
If you want, I'll eat them one at a time. Would you like that? Would you like to watch me?
If the words had any impact upon the Eldar, she gave no outward sign. She remained unfazed, her stare still half-lidded in arrogant contempt.
Your race has always been infantile, in a clumsy, belligerent, and repellent way. I often forget how recently it was that you first crawled out from the primordial ooze of your first world. If you wish to show me rather than tell, it is of no consequence,
she said as
No consequence.
she rested a claw tip between Lucius's eyes.
The answers I seek are within you somewhere.
She sank her nail into Lucius's face, drawing a trickle of dark blood to spill over the claw and patter onto her boots. Lucius gasped with the transcendence of her touch as the tendrils fastened around his body began to loosen. The Eldar mistress grinned as she withdrew her hand, and Lucius dropped away into the dark.
I am Thindrak, Archon of the Cabal of the Last Hatred, and I shall
Wait. Thindrak. Okay.
enjoy learning just how much of you I will have to cut out to find them.
Mere killing should never be enough. How much more intense is the feeling of inhaling the mist created when you vibrate a foe's body until he vaporizes? How much more completely have you explored all of a person can offer you than when you breathe them into yourself, leaving only the memory of them still a part of this world? The traitors lost. The War Master Horus had been slain. The Emperor of Mankind was crippled, interned upon the Golden Throne as a carrion lord. Lucius, Fulgrim, and the shambling horde that was the Emperor's children ravaged the Imperium as they fled to the massive warp rift, the Eye of Terror. The slightly mad, endorphined high, grievously scarred Lucius had nothing left to him but indulgence. The Scarlet Blade, a gladiatorial contest held by the Emperor's children, became a divine place for Lucius. Endless contest, endless slaughter, as all manner of opponents, willing and unwilling, were broken down in utter cruelty. The victories, the perfect skill, the admiration of the crowd, it felt incredible. A scale so far tipped towards arrogance, his insecurities were washed away. The sea of madness, the warp, twisted and turned around Lucius. Servants of the delightful god Slaanesh, fed upon the extreme emotions rippling from him. Oh, he was loved. The favoured son had climbed, plucking the fruit of perfection, and he consumed the rotten, twisted prize. The climb of this incredible duelist drew jealous eyes. Lord Commander Sirius, hateful, arrogant, and jealous, decided he needed to destroy this upstart obstacle.
Lord Commander Sirius. What happened to Lord Commander... What's his name again? Eidolon. Eidolon. What happened to Lord Commander Eidolon?
Stepping into the ring at the final round of the Scarlet Blade, Sirius challenged the blood-dripping, scarred thing that was Lucius. Armed with only a simple sword and a tunic, Lucius giggled in delight and launched himself at this fully armoured opponent. It was not a fair contest, but a murder in disguise. Each wound Lucius took, his laughter grew. The corruption of Slaanesh turned jolting pain into spasms of ecstasy. Sirius beat Lucius to death until the laughing stopped. Sirius felt immense pleasure and pride from slaying Lucius.
But he's not actually dead, because, you know, Slaanesh has given him the power of immortality in that sense, where he never dies.
But the victorious champion would suffer a fate worse than death. For weeks, the Lord Commander began to change. His hair fell out. Others could hear him scream in the night. Some nights it almost sounded like Laughter. Someone else's laughter. Dark lines appeared under his flesh, growing until they formed a maze of scar tissue.
Oh my gosh. Wait, is this going to be like Alien? You know, like the Alien versus Predator movies, and you know the face huggers when they impregnate you with the alien inside your chest and then it bursts out. Is that what's going to happen to this guy? That's going to be crazy. That's how he becomes immortal. He bursts out of people like an alien. Ew. But that's also cool, like how that happens. But okay, wow.
His armor began to shift. The look of flayed faces rippled across its surfaces. After weeks, like a snake shedding its skin, Lucius was reborn.
What? Okay, this is not like Alien. This is not like Alien. So you kill Lucius, but Lucius grows inside of you, and eventually he takes over your body, and then he peels your skin off, and Lucius is back, essentially. Wow. And then the faces of people on his armor. What's that really about? What's that about? Oh gosh.
Champion of Slaanesh. His existence eternal. A face of roped scars, a tongue like a viper, elongated teeth, hoofed feet, each nerve sensitive to a level where pleasure and pain blurred. Lucius felt incredible. He was more powerful than ever. He was purged of any weakness, such as sympathy, kindness, friendship, and his humanity. More predator than man. His thoughts focus on his next pleasurable experience. Selfishness personified. To stand before Lucius, your spine would tingle. The hair on the back of your neck would stand up, as the monster before you would leave you begging for the mercy of death. The champion of Slaanesh gathered forces loyal to him, the cohors Nasike, warriors in dedication to the Prince of Pleasure. In search of worthy foes, countless number of champions of the Imperium and Xenos fell to his blade. Lucius had now developed no regard for his own life, in fact, even taking extreme pleasure in it.
Man, this is a nasty Chaos Marine. Oh my gosh.
As for the impossible happened. When the champion of Slaanesh fell, his opponent, rife with pride, would begin to change. The roped, scarred flesh of Lucius each time would emerge from underneath, shedding his opponent from humans, Eldar, and even growing like a tumor inside the living metal of Necrons.
What? Oh wow. Even mechanical beings like the Necrons cannot best this guy? That's crazy. What about the orcs or the Tyranids? What about them? If he's killed by them, will he also just burst out of a Tyranid? Oh wow.
All faces that emerged in screaming horror across his armor. He carried all their souls with him.
So that's what that is. Oh my gosh. So all those people that killed him, and when he consumed their bodies and he burst out, reborn, those people, their existence are now part of his armor. And you were seeing those faces, moving around, and that's them. No, Slaanesh has made a very, very potent and powerful Chaos Marine right here. Very powerful one. And the trick is you have to enjoy killing Lucius. The moment you enjoy killing him, it's over for you. You belong to him. He's going to be born out of you. So if you're like, what's his name again? If you're like Nakonia Shadowkin, maybe you won't be affected by, by this curse, if I can call it that, where Lucius comes out of you. And maybe he will die permanently. Oh, wow. Oh, okay, we need someone like Shadowkin to fight against Lucius again, and maybe that can help. Maybe. Yeah. Because, Shadowkin did not find any pleasure in killing Lucius. And as has been stated here, those who find pleasure in killing Lucius, they are the ones who suffer this fate of Lucius coming out of them. Or becoming them and then, ripping off the skin.
After a near endless cycle, a stretch of time impossible to measure within the eye of terror, Lucius was captured, sold as a gift to a Dark Elder Archon by one of his own, Fabius Bile. The venomous monster delighted in his captor's questioning.
One of his own? There's no such thing with Chaos Marines. It's every man for himself. The strongest, lead, and the weakest must follow. But really, there is no one of our own. It doesn't exist anymore.
The smell of those favoured by she who thirsts made his skin throb. The corruption of the Dark Prince lives in every fibre of his being. Like a toy, Lucius was dropped into the pits of the vilest, most gruesome place in the material universe, the Dark City of Commorragh. Dark Eldar bodies piled up, in a display of combat so fast, so utterly cruel and perfect, it made his patron god smile. Lucius enacted an uprising. With a layer blade in hand, he slaughtered his way free, uniting his cohorts Nasike with other corrupted Astartes prisoners, forging a new, devastating, disgusting force, the Faultless. A battle cry and a world view he would take to the material universe, for more slaughter was his to claim. Eternal, the universe will suffer this arrogant, cruel, hateful monster, for each champion who feels pride in his defeat becomes the monster. And the only way to end the cycle, the only way to defeat him devoid of pride, is someone who loves him. And the only man who ever loved him, as a brother would, died in the fires of Istvaan.
Oh no. Someone who loves him? No, that guy's dead. He's dead long time ago. Oh man, I thought it was someone who doesn't have the enjoyment of killing Lucius. That can break the cycle. But it has to be someone who loves him? Aye, that's impossible now. Who's gonna love this? Aye.
Pity the monster who lives in this universe without love.
Man, I love it how the Amber King always finishes off his videos with Scott Buckley music. Really beautiful. But yes, guys, that is it with Lucius, the Eternal Champion of Slaanesh. Entire character history, voice acted, 40k lore, made on the Amber King YouTube channel, and voice acted by Chris Glass. Yes, Chris Glass, thank you very much. You have made this character truly alive, and I hate him. I hate this character. I hate Lucius, really. And yeah, guys, that's it with Lucius and Sol, the Eternal and Tarvitz. Truly, characters on the opposite side of the same coin, if I can say that. Truly. Where Lucius aspires for his own greatness, his own perfection, Tarvitz doesn't really aspire for any of that. He is content with his life the way it is. He will proceed forward, but not for his own interests, but for the benefit of his brothers and the Legion and the Imperium of Men. Total opposites. The issue is that, Sol Tarvitz belong to a Legion that does not have the same mindset like him. They have the mindset of Lucius. And yeah, it was an odd, situation with Sol Tarvitz in the Third Legion, I think. But yeah, Lucius now, I don't think anyone can kill him. You can kill him, but he's not going to be dead. He's just not going to be dead. He's going to come back. And the fact that he can come out from Necron tier, that's insane. That's insane. That's really insane. That's why I'm wondering about the Orcs and the Tyranids. Can the same thing happen with them? Also the Tau, probably with the Tau, 100% with the Tau, probably. But I want to know. Can he also come back from the Tyranids? Can he just pop out from a Tyranid bioform? That would be very interesting to see. But yeah, really, Lucius, he, just like his Primarch, 100% like his Primarch, his descent into depravity and betrayal of his Legion was not immediate. It was small steps. Like every other Legion that betrayed the Imperium of Man, it was through small steps that led them to chaos. And all of those small steps added up into one big, activation of the chaos infiltrating these different legions. And it happened the same way with the Third Legion. It happened the same way with Fulgrim and Lucius. Yes, there were some loyalist forces from these different legions that did not descend into the same sort of depravities and viewpoints that the traitor Astartes had. But they were outnumbered. There were fewer of them compared to the majority. And yeah, they were all taken out. People like Sol Tarvitz were one of the last ones to have the last stand against the traitors. And, they really tried their best to make sure that the Imperium of Man would be alerted. The Imperium of Man would prepare itself to fight against this traitor legions. And, they gave them a run for their money. They gave them a run for their money till the bitter end. And yeah, in terms of Lucius, how he betrayed his fellow brothers in arms, and it was just sad. It was sad, hearing Sol Tarvitz, talking to Lucius, and Lucius, he didn't care. He left. He put a scar on his face, preparing himself to kill his closest confidant, his closest brother, the person that we thought he had his back, but he never did. Not really. And really, it was just a sad moment just to hear Sol, talking and asking him why. Why did you betray? You would kill me. You would kill your brothers. And, Lucius would laugh. Would be, in enjoyment, in accepting that this is who I am, this is what I'm going to do, this is, why I'm going to do it. And there's nothing that you or any other loyalist forces can do to stop me. It hurts. It really, really hurts. And when you think that these guys have been together for hundreds of years, to be betrayed this way. Oh. But then at least Saul had true friends. He had true brothers in arms. When you think about Loken, when you think about Nathaniel, he had that support. He had those friends. But the closest person in his life, the person who actually loved him, never trusted him, never loved him the same way, never had his back the same way like his other brothers. And it's sad. It's really, really sad. And now he's become this monster. Terrifying so, it's just very disturbing to look at. I mean, just look at this image of him. He's disturbing to look at. Really, really, really. He's just very disturbing to look at. But yeah, guys, that's it. It's been good, really. To learn about Lucius, to learn about Saul Tarvitz, it's really been good. Thank you again to the Amber King for compiling and presenting this information in such an entertaining and informative, way. And definitely, I will be coming back to this video again, just to, re-jog my memory. If I should ever forget something, I'll always come back to this video. It's really, really enjoyable. And it also connects to many of the other storylines that I've been reacting to, for the past, 2 years. So yeah, it's connecting everything together, not only from the Amber King's YouTube channel, but also from Evox and Avoid's YouTube channel, very different segments as well. Everything is being pieced up here, and I like it, really, I like it. I'm having that picture of Warhammer 40k. In the beginning, really, anyone would be lost with the vast amount of information and knowledge and lore pertaining to Warhammer 40k. But the moment you start drinking in cup by cup of that information, you will get a hang of it. You will, start to understand things, and you will start to invest yourself in these different characters. I'm still focused on the Primarchs, but definitely the Astartes, I'm also starting to look at them, just like Lucius, just like Khan. And I want to, get into Erebus, that SOB. I will be getting into him very soon. And yeah, really, this is good. Thank you. Thank you again to the Amber King. Guys, that is it. Remember, if you want to check out the original video as well as the Amber King's YouTube channel, the links are going to be in the description below. If you like my reaction, please give me a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Click on the notification bell if you want to be up to date with my latest videos, and I will see you guys next time. Okay? Thank you again to Rise is 5379. Hope I'm pronouncing your YouTube name correctly there. Thank you again for suggesting that I should react to this video. It's been good. Thank you. Alright guys, bye bye.